Hello, how is everyone doing tonight? I'm seeing some comments like this. I hate the clown. I hopefully hopefully you hated the clown that was on the thumbnail and not the one that's on screen right now. I assume so, or else you wouldn't be here. How is everyone doing? Because yeah, Mondays kind of suck, but I like being able to hang out with you guys and sort of spend some time and just chat about some stuff because yeah, um, it's a good evening, and you can hear in the other room the puppies are getting fed. So, how is everyone doing? I hope everyone's got a tasty beverage or just some sort of snack, something to keep you busy. I know it's Monday, so it might not be time to break into the good stuff, but I've got some cases to talk about. I've got a drink or two myself. Tonight's weird beverage is a Nevada Reaper soda, but I'm going to open that in a little bit. I'm just not really feeling right away like it's not so much that these things have been spicy, they've just been bad. Bad is the way to talk about it. So this one I haven't seen because I haven't been following it. Did I see that one of the witnesses in the Letitia Stotch trial also testified at the Murdaugh trial? Wild coincidence. Is it an expert witness? Because some of these expert witnesses really get around and testify in lots of trials. If it's just like some random witness, then that's awkward. That's an odd thing. And it looks like we got some answers here. Just water for me. Very tired today. Yeah, water's a good drink when you're tired. Good evening. Drinking orange Fanta Pop. Nice. Was going to mix up an old fashioned, but ran out of simple syrup. On to bottom grade Smirnoff canned drinks. That is fair. I've got a canned chelada here, which is not great, but it's a thing. Vez from Quebec is saying snack sounds good. Don't give me a bad idea. I'm on a diet. Nice. And Lori Del Santo trying to quit smoking. So grumpy. That's hard. But keep at it because it's a good thing to do. So Cheryl Reed drinking pink lemonade. Nice. Double espresso for the morning. Box wine. Hey, nothing wrong with a box wine. Minifree, California with a peach margarita. Nice. Pepsi Zero Sugar. Awesome. I'm not a big fan of the zero sugar stuff just because most of it tastes bad to me. I just have a particular reaction to that. So that doesn't mean that you guys can't enjoy it, but poured some Armagnac. Nice. Have to get my COVID haircut. I can almost sit on it. Lol. I'm not quite at the sitting at it there point, but I'm, yep. Manitoban Misanthrope saying, I'm thinking Carlson getting shit canned is cause for a celebratory drink. Lots of differing opinions on that one. I don't know what to make of that. I've heard all sorts of different theories on that one, and it's weird. I didn't expect it, certainly. Ladies and gents, it's a floral Moscato for me. We're celebrating. Nice. I really like a good Moscato. So a good Moscato is excellent. It's a really nice kind of summer drink. I'm actually really looking forward. I've got somebody coming in out to right now. My backyard is kind of more poop than yard. So I've got somebody who's coming in to clean that up. Just it makes sense for me to hire somebody for that. It's a lot of work. So once that's done, I'm looking forward to being able to enjoy the backyard, and I'm waiting for a nice sunny day to sit out there, me and Mrs. Runkle, and just have a Moscato, have a chat, maybe hang out there into the later hours, have a fire. I think that'd be nice. I'm looking forward to that. De Legality, Martini here. Nice. Mountain Dew and an LSAT prep book. I used to teach the LSAT. It's a tough one. Esprit Fleck is saying, smash the like, guys. It really does help. I actually had my first meeting with like a YouTube sort of partner, manager, helper, or whatever to try to, and they were like, yeah, make sure make sure that the security stuff or that people sort of do all the engagement things. So, yep. It was the FBI guy who pulled the data from the vehicle computers. Okay, so an expert witness, that does not surprise me. Those guys, like I said, they get around. Peach iced tea in Indiana, nice. Pina colada from Eegee's, nice. Samuel Adams, good stuff. Jasmine green tea, ooh, and in Calgary, right nearby. I like that pattern. That's a neat little pattern there. I was just noticing, I was like, I could do that on leather. That would not be too hard. So Germany with sparkling water. Hard kombucha. I've never heard of hard kombucha. That's a weird one. So we've got Rockstar Pure Zero. Nice. All right. I am going to pour myself, I think, right at the beginning. I've been going through, while I was in Texas, I bought a 12-pack of scotches. So we're going to start by opening one of those up because, yeah. Coke up in Grand Prairie. Nice. I hope you mean the beverage and not the other thing. When I've been in Grand Prairie, some of the other has been popular. It's been a popular reason for me to have to travel there. So, also, if you're up in Grand Prairie, I know a guy up there who does tattoos. He's a friend of mine. So, if you ever feel inclined to get a tattoo, I think it's Sterling Skulls Tattoos. Just give me a second. I'm just fixing my hair here. All right. I had like a little wisp of hair that was going directly into my eyeballs. And that was not great. See, don't make an auto sear pattern on the leather. Fair enough. Babs Austin, no offense. Sometimes the prolonged talk of alcohol becomes bothersome to this bona fide member of AA. Just saying. Fair enough. Yeah, and there's lots of other options, that are all good options. I also have a Coke. So, and I'm just saying, or somebody's saying, do I have a tattoo? I don't. My rule on tattoos has been basically that every time I think I want to get one, I wait a year and go, do I still want to have that? And so far, none of them I haven't been as eager like a year in as I was later or when I had the idea. So I haven't got one yet. So, all right. Oh, nice. Way too poor for the other. My son is into the tats. He was just in to see Chris at Sterling. If you see Chris, like tell him to say hi and, pass along a hi from Ian Runkle. And that might put a smile on his face. I'm not going to promise that there's any discounts or anything like that because, yeah. This is a fun question. Have I ever schooled a cop on the law during a traffic stop? During a traffic stop, I am typically trying to say very little, but I have had to, on a couple of occasions, tell the police that I was not going to let them search my stuff. So that is important. Maybe tattoo your Supreme Court case number. I've thought about doing that. I will admit it. So I guess we can start with story time about me interacting with police. So, story the first, and this is long before I ever went to law school, long before I was a teenager. So I was up being a tremendous geek on New Year's Eve. And so New Year's Eve, the popular thing to do on New Year's Eve is to stay up, drink, and, all of that stuff. What was I doing? Well, I was staying up with friends and I was playing Dungeons and Dragons because I am a total geek and I have been since I was very young. So, I'm driving home late at night on a day when the police are out in force looking for impaired drivers because, don't drive impaired. That's a very bad idea. And I am, what is it? I'm running along and I run into a road check. So this is just like a, the police have blocked off the road and they are randomly screening driver, or they're looking to see if you've been drinking so that they can make you do a breath test. Nowadays they just breath test everybody, but at the time they need to have an actual reason to breath test you, but they could certainly stop you. So I run into this stop and they say, what have you been doing tonight? And I respond with, that's my business, which they didn't like. They really did not like that. So then they look over and they see I've got a backpack next to me. And they say, have you been drinking? And I say, no. And they're doing the thing where they lean right into your window and they're sniffing. It's like something out of the Lord of the Rings. The scene where the Nazgul are sniffing around after Frodo. So they're sniffing to see if they can smell alcohol, and of course, I'm cold sober. I haven't had anything to drink. I had actually had one brandy chocolate, which has like a 1/4 ounce. So I was sober. But the officer goes, what's in the bag? And I said, that's private. And he said, no, I need to know what's in the bag. And I was feeling a little cheeky. And I said, that's too bad. And he said, what do you mean that's too bad? I said, it's too bad because you don't get to look in my bag. So if you need to see it, that's too bad for you. And he says, I need you to wait here. I'm going to get a supervisor. And I said, okay. And I'm being asked, did I have long hair at this time? I did not. I had short hair. I looked, so you can, if you go back and look at my early videos, you can see me with the short hair. So you can see sort of what I looked like, except that I didn't have as much gray hair. My hair was a lot darker. So this officer goes up and talks to his supervisor. And, he's going back and forth. They're having a discussion. And then he comes back and the supervisor's with him. And he says, so can I look in your bag yet? And I said, no, you can't. And the supervisor taps on the side, like the side of my door. He's on the passenger side. And I sort of crack the passenger side door. And I'm just going to note here, I did not have automatic windows. So when I crack the passenger side door, I have to lean over, reach, and operate the little like crank. I know a lot of you younger folks will not have seen that, but I had to crank it over from like leaning way over. And so the supervisor, once I've got it, sort of cracked this much, the supervisor's like, he looks over to the other officers, says, he's good. And he says, sir, you're good to go. Just, you have a good night. Thank you. And I drove home. I think the supervisor took one look at me and said, yeah, this guy, not this guy. This guy's a total nerd. He's not out dealing drugs. He's not any of that. He's just a total nerd. Let him go home. So, yeah. Did you know yet that you wanted to be a lawyer? I didn't. At this point, I actually thought I wanted to be a writer. And that never worked out, but that's okay. So, and I'm being asked, your grandma's no frills car? Yes, this is the car that did not even have a radio. Instead of a radio, it had a little bin where you could put stuff. So, yeah, I just had nothing. That car was so basic. It was so basic. Yeah, it was just a very, very basic car. So that's the first story of me having an interaction with the police that was a little tense. I see, when was this pullover? I think I was like 17, I want to say. So that puts us a long time ago. That puts us into the 90s. So don't let your dreams be dreams. You can be both a lawyer and a writer like Steve or Bronca. Both of them have written nonfiction books. I would want to venture into maybe writing some fiction. I might do that at some point. No cassette player even. No, she made them take it out. She made them take it out. She was like, hey, if it's going to cost $50 for there to be a radio or whatever, I'm not doing it. So that was yanked out. So you see, so like 10 years ago, no longer than 10 years. See, nice. The cojones at 17. I was just in a really bad mood. I was just in a sort of grumpy mood. So the next sort of round of this is this is like many years later, and now I can't remember if I was a lawyer or in law school. So I was out at the range, and I'm sitting there. I am, I have a good day shooting. I, shoot handguns. I shot, I don't think I owned an AR at that time, but I shot rifle. I shot all sorts of things. And then I was driving back. And as I'm driving back, I will admit I was driving a little fast, wee bit fast. So I'm driving along and I see lights in the back, and that I'm just going to say it was a fair cop on that one. On the speed issue, it was a fair ball. So I get pulled over, and this officer comes over and says, do you know why I pulled you over? And I said, why did you pull me over? And he said, I pulled you over because you were going too fast. And I say, I understand why you pulled me over. And he looks in the back window, like on the back seat. And I have a whole bunch of, I got a whole bunch of gun cases back there. I see fast, but Rob says you drive like a little old lady. Rob is wrong. I drive like a little old lady when I'm in a foreign country, because when I'm in a foreign country, you don't want to mess around with that crap. I don't want to, it's a very different thing to get pulled over in a country where you live and whatever than for this to happen in the States. So anyway, I was going a little bit fast. And this is a fair comment. So he says, what's in the cases? Because, I mean, they're obviously gun cases, right? They're black plastic cases. Some of them have locks on them. Not all of them, but some of them. The handgun cases by law have to have a lock on them. Whereas I had the rifles in cases, but they did not have to have a lock on them by law. So, anyway, the officer says, what's in the cases? And I said, well, that's private. And he says, what do you mean? And I said, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about anything other than what we're here to talk about. Like, are you going to write me a ticket? And he says, no, I need to know what's in the cases. And I said, okay, I'm not consenting to any searches. And he says, well, I'd like you to open the cases. Now, this phrasing is very careful. Like, I'd like you to open the cases isn't I am demanding that you open the case. It's just, I would like for you to do this. It's kind of a way of fishing for consent. And I can tell you, if I had opened the cases, he would have put in his notes, consensual search, which I was not having. So I just said, sir, if you are searching me, I don't agree to the search, but I will wait wherever you need me to wait while you conduct a search, if that's what you're doing. And he said, well, can I look in the cases? I said, if you're asking for permission, the answer is no. No, you do not have permission. And he's like, well, I'm concerned there might be guns in there. I said, I understand your concern, sir. Not yes, I understand your concern. So he's like, well, wait here. And he goes back to his car and he comes back and he writes me the ticket. Because of course he writes me the ticket. My whole point on this is I'm not looking to get out of the ticket. lots of people, when they have these interactions, they're like, how do I get out of the ticket? And I'm never like, that's never my philosophy. My philosophy is, how do I get out of the, having this turn into a bigger thing? Or if it does, because here's the thing. There's a bunch of gun safety rules that are hinged around the idea of assume you make a mistake. And what I mean by that is, like, you don't point a gun at somebody even though you think it's unloaded, because what if you're wrong? What if you screwed up, right? What if you're about to Baldwin somebody? So you don't point the gun at somebody because you might have made a mistake. I apply the same principles to my interactions with the police. I am certain, that I was careful putting those guns in the car, locking them up, the handguns with a trigger lock, and then a lock on the case, everything unloaded. I am sure that that's what I was doing, right? But what if I screwed up? What if this is the day that I've got a cartridge in one of the guns? I don't want to find out because a cop searched the gun. So I would much rather find that out when I go to put the guns in the safe, because I'll tell you, my process for getting my guns home after I'm at the range, I'm done with the guns. Every gun gets checked again. I mean, it was checked when I was done with it and putting it on a rack to wait for later. Now that I'm packing it up, check again. It gets locked up, goes into the case. Each gun gets checked before it goes in my car. Once they come out of my car in my house, before they go in the gun safe, they get checked. I check them again as I put them in the gun safe. When I pull them out of the gun safe to go to the range the next time, even though I know I checked it before it went into the gun safe, I check it again. If I was going to take a gun out to do some like dry fire practice, or to practice with like a dummy cartridge, this is a dummy cartridge for a shotgun. It's just for practice. Like, this is just so you can practice loading. I check the shotgun again. Check and check and check and recheck and recheck and recheck, because but because I'm assuming that I could make a mistake is why I don't let the cops search my car. So it's and I consider that the legal aspect of gun safety. I just want to I want to be good on that. So so eventually the officer comes back. He wrote me the ticket. I paid the ticket because quite frankly, I was driving at the speed that they were talking about. So and then I went home. So not super stressful, not anything, but See, I had a cop point a gun at me with his finger on the trigger. I was really sweating. I'd done nothing wrong. Mistaken identity. I had to ask him to take his finger off the trigger. Yeah, you should not move your finger to the trigger until you're about ready to shoot. And cerebellum, Ian, have you ever double checked and then realized you didn't empty the gun? Okay, glad you checked. Once before I put it in the car, I was out shooting with some people, and one of the people I was shooting with, somebody who should have known better, put a magazine in the gun, and that magazine had 3 cartridges in it. So it wasn't that a cartridge was chambered, but when I checked it, I was like, "Holy crap!" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I just put the mag in." And I was like, "Did you check that the mag had ammo in it?" And he's like, "No, I just thought that was a good place for it." And I was like, "Ooh," I was not happy with that. You pay tickets at point of issue in Canada? No, but I can pay them online. So that's what I did, is I went home and paid it online. Stop self-snitching. Nothing I'm talking about here is something I could be charged for, because the only offenses are ones I was already convicted on, to wit, the speeding. The firearm thing, I checked it before it went into my gun safe, so it was good. I mean, the guy screwed up, the guy I was with, and he screwed up behind my back. But that's why I check, right? You never know. You got to assume somebody around you is a screw up. You got to assume assume that there's an evil gremlin at your range and that he's going to cause you all sorts of problems. And yes, remember that he's in Canada, so gun law can be different from the US. Yeah. Yeah, paying tickets at point of issue sounds a lot like a bribe, which is why we can't do it. But you can just pay them online. That's kind of what that's about. If your certain tickets you can pay online, others you have a mandatory court appearance and so forth. But how bad was the speeding? Not as bad as you might think. I think I was like 25 kilometers over. I don't know what that is in miles, but yeah, it's Ian Runkle, the convicted Canadian lawyer, explains how to evade potential responsibility from police. I mean, it was a ticket, but the other avoiding thing was just not committing the crime in the first place. Because had I driven home with a gun with a loaded magazine in it, I would have been committing a crime at that point. What's a kilometer? It is 1,000 meters. What's a meter? It's close to a yard, but not exactly. How many disputed moving violations win in court? Not many, but it really depends on the circumstances. So I see some U.S. states accept a credit card at the roadside. At least a credit card. Credit card's not so bad because, but like in some countries, you can expect that you might get pulled over by the police and that they will want a fine payment at the roadside in cash. And if you get that fine payment at the roadside in cash, what you're being asked for is a bribe, typically. And typically what that means is that you're paying to not get into a whole lot of trouble. Pamela Leanne Freeland asks a good question. Runkle, do you not have to disclose that you have a weapon in your vehicle when you were pulled over in Canada? No. I have an entire video on this, and I don't. So when I've been pulled over, when I have firearms in the car, I don't say, hey, I've got guns in this car, because usually that doesn't go well. So, yeah. In Croatia, there's a law that you can't pay ticket at point of sale since 2015. Every time in the last 3 years, I paid $50 in cash. Yeah, I mean, I have represented a number of people in Canada who have been like new immigrants or new refugees or tourist visitors who have been in Canada, have gotten in trouble with the police, and then have tried to say, I would like to, can I just pay this fine at the roadside, and like handing over cash. And then I have to explain like, hey, this guy comes from a country where you can get murdered for this. So, for not paying the cops. So, yeah. And I see people noting, so Ian was doing like 15 miles per hour over. Yeah, I guess. I have driven faster than that, but not with the guns. And I see Niklas Staro. Great to have you in the chat here. Noting in Sweden, it's illegal to have a blade over 8 centimeters in your car, which I discovered included my axe. That was fun. I wonder if that includes like a saw blade, because I've often I have kept a saw in my car for winter because, if you're going camping or whatever, a saw is a very useful thing to have. If there's a situation where there's like underbrush or, brush that's crashed over on the road, that's a problem. Similarly, if you've ever need to like clear some brush to stuff it under your tires to get some traction, pro tip, if you are slipping on the road and you can't get any traction, if you cut like a bunch of branches and stuff them under your tire, you might be able to get traction to get you out. You can also do this with like a strip of bark. So in Canada, when pulled over and a cop asks you if you have a gun in the trunk, you do not have to answer. You cannot lie. You cannot lie to the officer, but you don't have to answer. So important distinction there. You just say, I'd rather not answer any questions about my trunk, officer. If you've got grounds to search, then search, but I'm not consenting to any searches. I see axe is way better, Ian. You can get to dry wood and can chop any size tree, unlike a saw. The advantage to a saw is that a saw is way more efficient in terms of effort. It's something like 3 times as much effort to cut the same sort of log with an axe as it is to do so with a saw. So a saw is much more efficient. But yeah. New Brunswick, new law. Drivers caught driving 50 to 80 kilometers per hour over the limit will face a $500 fine, 5 demerit points lost, and a 7-day vehicle impound. Let me tell you that so in Ontario, which has a similar law, I was driving a rental car, and I got pulled over in this rental car, driving at what the officer indicated was 45 kilometers over the limit. And he's like, if you were going 5 more kilometers over the limit, I would have to impound your vehicle, which would have been super freaking expensive, because for a rental car, if they impound it for 7 days, then now I'm having to pay for 7 extra days of rental car impound. So, yeah, it's that's sort of a big deal there. So I avoided that. I did have to pay a non-trivial fine. I'm a Pennsylvania constable. If pulled over, asked if they can search/look, my answer is always no. If they get pushy, I tell them I will comply with instructions, but if they're asking, it's no. Yes, this is an excellent set of answers, although keep in mind, I'm talking about for where I live, Canada. So that may or may not be applicable to where you are. So, and I note somebody was saying, I keep getting written for 49 over. I guess it's a lot less paperwork for the officer. Yeah, and the officer is probably straight up doing you a favor. Valkyrie Arts saying, I thought it was technically legal to go 10 miles per hour over or under the speed limit and not be in trouble. Technically, if you're over the limit at all, you are in violation, at least where I am, because over the limit is over the limit. That's why it's a limit. Somebody was asking, do I have a Viking wood splitter yet? I do not. I am actually right now going to pull up the Viking wood splitter webpage. Viking wood splitter. All right, vikingwoodsplitter.com. Here we go. And I'm just trying to see here. Do they have them back in... where's their actual store page? I just want to... There we go. Choose a sword. Pointed tip. I want the pointed tip. Oh, they raised the prices. The price went up. They're back in stock, but the price went up by $50, the buggers. I guess that's the world, huh? Well, I will... I think I'm going to buy one. Would you guys want to see me playing around with a Viking wood splitter? Because, yeah. I see probably my fault for flagging them. Now, somebody sent me one that was from Alberta. I'm trying to find that. Is it Viking wood splitter that's in Alberta? Yeah, they might actually be. Viking wood splitter. Where are they located? Come on. Where are you guys located? Shop? No, that's home. Where are these guys actually located? I'm trying to figure this out here. Just trying to see. Are these guys out of Alberta is what I'm trying to figure out. Chat, if you're on that webpage, if you can find that out for me, let me know. I see contact the team. That doesn't help me. Michael Thompson, Kelly Thompson. Are these people I know? They are. They're out of Alberta. So, yeah, that's even better. I can support a local. I can support a local organization here for my benefit here. All right. I'm seeing people saying I gave too much publicity. So, all right. Oh, he doesn't believe in axes because he has a wood splitter. If I buy a Viking wood splitter, Rob might cry. I just got to see. It looks like they're back in stock. Sword pointed tip. Handle covering. Chat, should I get brown or black, burgundy, green, or blue leather? What do you think? I see people saying that they're sold out online. I'm seeing it's... Oh, no, it is... sheath. None. Custom engraving. No, I don't need any engraving. Add to cart. Handle covering. Out of stock. Out of stock. Out of stock. It is out of stock. And they want $450 for it. Jeez. That's expensive. I'm going to have to contact them and be like, hey, I'm a local Edmontonian. I've got a YouTube channel. Can you, like, I'm not asking for a deal. I am just asking for, can you set one aside when one is done? And they'll probably say, no, go to heck. My hair is not being cooperative today. Hair. Come on. So, my hair is just a disaster. Sorry about that. Maybe they'll sponsor you. I doubt it. I mean, it looks like it's like a family business. I don't know that I really want to... I don't know that I want to hassle them and be like, hey, I want your money or I want free crap or anything like that. I just want a thing. And the other thing is maybe I could do... maybe I'll talk to them about if I could do a video and say like, hey, could I do a thing where I come to your shop and like look around the shop and like we can do a video on that? So that would be a neat idea. And then I can make... They sell sheets for them. I actually think their sheets look kind of awful. So sorry guys, but I will probably make my own sheet. All right. See somebody saying, bet they do the Renfest circuit. You might be able to find the product and get a discount there. They're literally like right in my backyard, it looks like. So like right here, close by in Alberta. So that would be awesome. Runkle, you suck at selling out. I do. I'm just going to say, you remember the Jace case where I made the video that was literally titled Runkle Sells Out? They were like, hey, when are you going to put the video up? And I was like, I already put the video up. It is the, and it's titled Runkle Sells Out. And they were like, we don't like your title. I'm like, okay, cool. But did you sell product? And they're like, yeah, some. So I was like, cool. That's it. Somebody's asking, what am I drinking? This is Iron Root Republic Distilling Straight Corn Whiskey. And it warns that women should not drink alcoholic beverages during pregnancy, and consumption of alcoholic beverages impairs your ability to drive a car or operate machinery and may cause health problems. So I will not do those things while I am consuming this. Can't wait to see you with Donut Operator, Demo Ranch, Bill Goldberg, etc. I hung out with them. I did some shooting out there. I mean, it's just... I am bad at marketing myself as well. So I was just kind of fanboying around, and I don't think that was super helpful. All right. Let me just see. Let's talk about... Well, first, I am behind on some of the memberships and so forth. Ryan from Calgary, and thank you for the member chat. Hey, Ian in chat, Mondays suck less now that I have a ritual to observe. Awesome. Brentwood Chic, thank you very much for 10 gifted memberships. It's much appreciated. Paladin Phil, evening, getting ready for bed soon. Thank you for the member chat there. Hempland, Texas, thank you for 10 gifted memberships. Much appreciated. And Froggy Girl, I'm so glad I get to catch a live. I always miss it, but love the replay. I only drive fast in my local area. Yeah, I mean, I don't drive as fast now as I used to sometimes, but yeah. Did you end up in any of their videos? No. Devin says lies. He did a decent job networking at the Gundies. I did a terrible job. I shook hands with some people I was fans with. I do need to reach out and do some networking with. I met Lockpicking Lawyer, so yeah. Alicia G, thank you very much for the membership chat. Saying your hair is amazing. Well, thank you. And Gun Kit Canada, thank you for the membership. Saying hurrah, thank you. What is it? Celtic Pony, they look awful. LMAO, harsh but funny. I'm a crafter / small business person. It made me happy you didn't ask for a deal. I have actually turned down deals on the basis of being an influencer, because I hate the freaking term. So I went and so I'm at this little, like, I was out going hunting. And Parallel Jen, thank you very much for 5 gifted memberships. Oh, I suppose I should get through the super chats here and so forth. Aaron H, thank you very much for the membership. Much appreciated. Michelle Kanata, jury duty today, booted because I'm a contractor. It was a civil case of a tenant versus an apartment complex. And we do maintenance at these kinds of places. That's a good reason. I'd boot you for that too. Sorry. Stephanie Coker saying, any word on Ben Armstrong court hearing today? Wasn't it today? It was today, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss what went down. Is it impaired operation if you're drunk on a hoverboard in your house? I would have to actually look at that. I think you have to be on a roadway. All right. So I was telling the story of trying not to be the douchebag influencer. So I was going, like, I'm out hunting and I had a half box of ammo, and a half box of ammo is probably more than you need for a hunting trip, because really a hunting trip is not like a target practice trip. On a target practice trip, you're running ammo through the gun. But on a hunting trip, ideally, you're not shooting the gun a whole lot. My best hunting trip was one where I shot 3 times and got 2 deer. That was a good trip, right? Whereas my worst your worst hunting trip is if you fire multiple times. And yeah. What was I hunting? I had an elk tag. I got no elk. I just didn't. So I had an elk tag, no elk. So, but I was, I think it was like 8 rounds total. And I was like, I would like to maybe have some more ammunition just in case. And just in case I drop it or something like that. So I stop at this, I see elk are really tough to hunt. Yeah, I was going to go with somebody, and then they canceled out on me at the last minute. So I had the tag. I went on my own, but I did not know the area. I didn't any of that. So, yeah. So I stop at this little tiny gun store. It was this little tiny place on the road. And I bought 2 more boxes of ammo because I know I'll go through it. And it was actually the 2 boxes of 270 that the guy had. And I go up and I put the things on the counter and I'm like, bring me up, please. And he's like, they're free for you, sir. And I was like, what? And he's like, I watch your channel all the time. Please take the ammo. And I was like, you run a gun store in the middle of nowhere. Take my money. Just take the money. So, yeah, I insisted that he ring me up for it because he wanted to cut me a break on that. And I was like, no deal. So it was cool because at the time I had like, I don't know, 10,000 followers. So not a whole lot. But so it was really cool to run into a fan, but I was also like, I don't want to take this guy's money. So yeah. So Ian, you took your gun for a walk. I have taken my gun for many walks. It happens. And the thing is a lot of the time the hunting isn't that much walking either. I will tell you that what I ended up doing was I went out, I found a place that it was a beautiful place. There was clear elk track that was going across a cut line. And, a cut line is they've cut trees down in order to make way for telephone poles, right? And so there's this nice clear path. It's a cut line. There's elk tracks, like clearly they go across here. And so I parked myself about 200 yards back from where they were crossing. And I covered myself with some branches. I was like hunkered down, just looking, watching with my rifle there. And I didn't see a dang thing. I just sat there for hours and hours and hours. Sorry, I'll correct myself. When I say I didn't see a dang thing, I saw a moose cross the road, across that path. I could have taken that moose, could have dropped that moose, no problem. No moose tag. I saw a coyote, and I didn't take the shot on the coyote because I would have involved me firing the gun, and then that's sort of going to scare things away. And the coyote was just minding its own business. It was heading down the way. And I saw 4 or 5 rabbits. And afterwards, I was wishing that I'd shot the rabbits, wishing I'd shot the coyote, wishing I'd, anything. But yeah, I got nothing. So I basically just sat out there until my phone said, yep, it's, is that how you say coyote? I grew up saying coyote. Out here in Alberta, people say coyote. And if I don't say it like the Albertans, people look at me funny. But I see shoot a rabbit with a Winchester 270. I wouldn't have shot it with the 270. But it would have been nice to have something like I've gone hunting now with like a little pellet gun as a side gun. I have gone hunting with and I've also sometimes brought a small shotgun, like just a very small shotgun with me, just as a side gun, just to say, like if I see a rabbit or if I see a grouse or something, I can take that. If you're not going to eat it, why shoot it? For a coyote, I would take the pelt. The pelt, I would, I'd skin the pelt out. I would use the fur. I would, yeah, I'd use bone. I would use all sorts of things from that. I've made bone buttons. So yeah. 22 works for rabbits if you want to carry a pistol for such occasions. I cannot carry a 22 handgun hunting out here, which is sad. Do I have any bows? I do have a bow. It's not a great bow for hunting. It's a survival bow. I want to get a survival rifle. I really want to get the Chiappa Exchange series just to try it out. But yeah. Nikki Crayons, gun question. What's a good first gun for a woman to carry for self-defense? I've never held a gun. What I would say is first thing is if you're going to get a gun for self-defense, you need to commit to putting in some training time and some practice time because you want to get good enough that you can operate it without any issues. So I would recommend something in 9mm, just a 9mm semi-auto, and find one that fits nicely in your hands. It's all very tactile. So you got to see what fits for your hands and so forth. But yeah. How can Canadian Tire still sell 25 shot clips for the 1022? That's a whole question for another video because that's a long one. Would coyote make a good dog meat, or is that a bit sus? I'm nervous about that because what is it? a coyote is too similar, and so I'm worried that the parasites that might infest a coyote would instead um, would also be able to go after my dogs. So yeah, that I'm not ideal with. So yeah, I just sort of suggest not so much. Ian, you are a true outdoorsman. Cheers. I try, but I'm not great. There's lots of people who are far more outdoorsman-y. I just took a survival course. That was fun. Have I ever eaten wild game testicles? It's my guilty pleasure when I harvest male animals. I have not, but I will eat deer heart, and deer hearts I love. I was actually kind of disappointed that when the last time I went hunting, I got 2 deer, and my aim was overly good because I tagged both directly through the heart, and there was no heart left. It was just directly straight through each time. So, I mean, nothing wrong with that. It's good shooting. It's I can't complain if the animals were sort of shot humanely. Neither of them made it more than a few feet after they got shot, but so that's exactly what you want, right? You want them to just drop right away. But I was still kind of sad that I didn't get the heart. So very humane, but that's it. Like it's like, all right. So people are asking about survival class stories. This was an online class, and it's a prerequisite for doing their in-person class. So I want to do their in-person class. I will say a lot of the stuff I learned in that class, or a lot of the stuff I went over, was stuff that I already knew. I kind of wanted to tell them my little story about having to survive, or having to do a bit of survival. I had my own little minor survival experience, and so my little minor survival experience was I went up into a mountain. I was hiking. I was just doing like standard hiking. It was a place that I like to hike. It's not too difficult of a hike. It's kind of a one-day hike, but I basically brought in this thing. I brought in a tiny tent, and when I say a tiny tent, I mean like a little coffin tent. If you don't know what a sort of coffin tent is, it's like a tent that is just big enough for you, and they kind of just hang right over your face. If you're one person, they're quite warm. They're quite comfortable. So I really, they're great, and they're lightweight. So they're a great single person hiking tent. So I was hiking with that. I had a little stove. I had, all the usual stuff, and I had food for the weekend because I was just going up to be up there for a weekend. I see people saying it's called a bivy sack. Different people have different names for it. I go with coffin tent. And yeah, this is an excellent point. They're very heat efficient for one. So, I was there, and I'm packing up basically. Like I haven't taken down my tent, but I'm washing pots. I'm doing all of this stuff. And I look up and I see a blizzard rolling in. And when you're up in a mountain, I will tell you, a blizzard coming in is beautiful. It is amazing to see. It's one of those things where I'd say it would be awesome to see, except that the price of seeing it is you got to go through it. And so it just rolls in. It's like this big sort of snowy fireball kind of rolling up. And I went, oh crap. So I picked up my tent like this, which I hadn't taken down. It still got my sleeping bag in it. Still got my I didn't have like a full size pillow. I had like a little sack that you stuff your spare clothes in and use as a pillow. That was my pillow. So I carted that whole thing over to near the tree line, and the tree line here is like there's crappy trees. And then I just started a fire and hunkered down. And when that snowstorm rolled in, it made it impossible to see anything. It just wasn't possible. I had to reinforce my tent with some sticks so that it wouldn't collapse on me. And it was just, it was miserable because I then couldn't see where the path was. Like I couldn't see more than about 15, 20 feet. And there was just no way for me to navigate out. So I got stuck 4 or 5 days, more than I expected to be. I did not have any more food other than like trail mix and stuff like that. So I spent the time drinking a lot of like pine tree tea and wondering sort of like, hey, I really hope this clears up because this is real bad. Thankfully, there was enough wood like so that I could keep the fire going. And I mean, you couldn't see distance. So I'm going to get fire or more firewood. And like literally, it's the only thing I could see was my fire because it was that light. So I'm keeping this fire going. It wasn't too cold. It was a little bit above or a little bit below freezing, but it was still pretty miserable. And finally, at the end of all of this, the snow stops falling. I can see again. I can sort of decide to navigate the trail. And I see, come on, Ian, always take more food than you need. You're not going to starve to death for like at least 30 days. So food isn't the problem. Water might have been the problem, except that snow was not an issue. Did you have a knife or a small saw? I had a knife and a small saw. So I was doing good on that. I didn't have an axe, but and the don't hike by yourself. This was one of my big mistakes is that I was up there and nobody knew where I was. Nobody. So it was like, I got to get me out or they're going to find me in like the spring. So afterwards, I go to start packing up my stuff and I realize I'm feeling pretty weak. So I just decide, you know what, screw it. I leave my tent. I leave my sleeping bag. Those things just stay there. I take my knife. I take my axe. Take the saw rather, not the axe. I take like basic stuff. I take my stuff and I hiked my way out, got into my car, drove to this little like diner and this sort of very nice woman. She's like, can I get you a menu? And I was like, you cannot. Just get me food, whatever food is fastest. She's like, huh? And I'm like, I am really hungry. I will just take whatever's quick. She's like, okay then. So, and I love this woman because the first thing she did is she brought me a slice of pie. She's like, you seem really hungry and the pie is cooked already. So here's pie. So I had pie. And then right after that, it was bacon and eggs and hash browns. Quick. So I had that. I ate. And then like the next weekend when I was feeling a little bit better, I hiked back up and got my stuff out of the mountain. So yeah, I see people saying always have a GPS tracker thing on you. A friend, at the time you couldn't get those little GPS trackers. They didn't exist. So now I'm going to get one if I plan to do any of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I just, yeah, that lady was great. And if you're wondering, yes, she did get a very good tip on that. So that was some of the best food I've ever had in my life. And Nicholas Starro, thank you for the member chat, noting it's a coffin tent in bear country. Nice. Did you tell people where you were going when you went back to get your stuff? Yes, but I wasn't staying. I just went up, grabbed my stuff, and carted it out. So, all right. Now, I think we were going to also talk about some law. I think we had that plan. And I see now you would at least tell your wife, yes, and she would probably come with me. So, Ian, just go to a 5-star hotel to relax. Honestly, the really nice hotels, I kind of get creeped out by. I don't know why. I just like I usually stay at like kind of mid-range or even low-range hotels. I've stayed at some really grungy hotels. One of the places I really, really liked, as was actually a, it wasn't like a hotel at all. It was a work camp. I went up to do a court appearance, and I stayed at a place that normally what they do is they hold oil workers. I actually quite liked that. It was a really nice setup. I would stay there again. So, and somebody, I was gonna respond to one and then I missed it. So it's gone. I can't find it. Sorry about that. All right, let me just find the. We got some stuff to talk about. I've got some stuff on the agenda, and I haven't talked about any of it. And you guys have been very patient with me. And my computer is doing a thing. Yeah, my wife is not a YouTube sort of fan, so I just yeah. Can't relax in a nice hotel. I'm getting my nasty cum and sweat on the good sheets. Yeah, I just don't feel like I fit in at the super nice hotels. So what is your favorite pie? Strawberry rhubarb. And somebody asked what kind of pie was it at the time? It was a blueberry pie. I still remember that pie, and I can't tell if that pie was the best pie ever or if it was just me. Because either of those things is a reasonable explanation. That pie tasted so good. I just really can't express how good that pie tasted when I was coming down from a mountain. All right, so let's start. I know people want to talk about BitBoy. I want to talk about BitBoy too, but I want to talk about some other stuff as well. So I'm being told I need to do the swoopy. We have a swoop. There's a swoop. All right. So next we're going to pull up. I'm just going to put this up here. A really interesting, weird case. This one is fun. And yes, I am going to cover that, Talia. I see your super chat there. We will be talking about that a little bit. I'm also probably going to do a full video on that. All right. So we have here Demetrius Polychron. Some of you guys might have heard of this one. Demetrius Polychron. And I haven't covered that one yet. We'll talk about it. It's on my list of things to do a video about. So this guy, aside from just having a cool name, I mean, that name is awesome. I kind of feel like that name is like, doesn't that sound like a supervillain name? Demetrius Polychron. I feel like this guy might have missed his calling. Maybe he should have been a supervillain. I see somebody saying it sounds like a Russian Pokemon. So he's suing a whole bunch of people, including, starts off with Jeff Bezos, Jennifer Salke, Simon Tolkien. So I was saying that this is a lawsuit against Tolkien. It's not J.R.R. Tolkien, because J.R.R. Tolkien's hard to sue because he's dead. You can't sue somebody that you can't serve without a shovel. I got a funny story about that, but we'll try to talk about this one. Remind me when we're done this story. Ask me about the shovel story. Chat, keep me honest on that one. All right. He's suing Amazon Studios, Amazon Content Services, the Tolkien Estate, the Tolkien Estate Limited, the Tolkien Trust, and Doe's 1 to 100. He's got up to 100 people that he's suing that he doesn't know who they are. Cool. And that's perfectly acceptable. Sometimes you sue people and you just don't know who they are. So he's going to figure out who they are. Complaints for copyright infringement, contributory copyright infringement, vicarious infringement, and unfair competition. And he wants a jury trial. Now, unfair competition is an interesting one because typically if you've got unfair competition and copyright infringement, then you typically you only plead the copyright infringement because you can't win on both. So that's interesting. Just is what it is. All right, so let's have a look here. What is his issue? So comes now Demetrius Polychron. I'm gonna have to get somebody to make like a Victorian porno, like 3-second clip, just so that I can play it for every time I want to mock this, because I hate the "comes now" line. Yeah, of course, now I just realized I was talking about like I should sponsor Victorian porno. No, maybe that's a bad idea. So, all right. So plaintiff Polychron is now, and at all relevant times, has been a resident of LA, California. We're going to go through who everyone is and where they live. That is just that's just kind of how these things go. You got to name that stuff. It's boring, but yeah. So complaint for injunctive relief and damages is what he's looking for here. And jurisdiction and venue, also boring, but important. So, they basically say, hey, this court has supplemental jurisdiction because they're arguing about why it should be heard in California. Fair enough. I don't really care about that until it becomes an issue. So, yeah, I love this comment. Someone with that name can't live anywhere but LA. It does kind of sound like an LA name. So I should sponsor Victorian porno, Ian Runkle 2023. You know what? If I could actually make if I could actually sponsor that video and then just like share that link around on the various like legal forums and so forth, it might get lawyers to stop using it. So that might be an idea. I don't think I'm actually going to sponsor a Victorian porno. So, all right. So prior to September 22, Polychron created, wrote, and published an original book entitled The Fellowship of the King, which they're going to now abbreviate to TFOTC, and conceived an entire 7-book series, The War of the Rings, the work. All right. What's the first problem everyone is noticing here? Well, the Fellowship of the King is like, doesn't that sound like the Lord of the Rings and so forth, Return of the King and so forth? Yeah, this is fanfic, folks. He wrote Lord of the Rings fan fiction. All right. Plaintiff's above reference book contains a substantial amount of material created by plaintiff's own skill, labor, and judgment, and is copyrightable subject matter under the laws of the United States. We're going to throw a big old asterisk on that one. Big old asterisk right now. All right. On or about November 21st, 2017, Polychron complied in all respects with the copyright laws of the United States and all other governing copyrights. We're gonna ask ourselves if that one is true. And secured the exclusive rights and privileges in and to the book of authorship, receiving from the Register of Copyrights a certificate of registration dated and identified as follows. So basically, he's saying he got a registration certificate, and we actually have that registration certificate. The original is on their, is online. I redacted this one. And the reason why I redacted it is because it has his home address in it. So organization name, Fractal Books, Demetrius Polychron. He lives in Beverly Hills, and he's got this copyright registration for one work by one author. So, and the title of the work is The Fellowship of the King. So that is registered. Cool. Now, note that a copyright registration doesn't actually mean crap in terms of showing that you complied with anything, because these registrations are done pretty much automatically. Like if I wrote a registration, like if I put in a copyright registration to say, hey, I am the true owner of the Bible, they'd issue me one of these certificates. That doesn't mean it's valid. It would have to hold up in court if it was tested, and I can guarantee you it wouldn't. But I could also, submit copyright registrations for, Terry Pratchett's books. Again, that would not be valid. So just because you have that doesn't mean a dang thing. Can we swear yet? No, we are like an hour away. Yes, and we're going to talk about that. No, please, let's keep fan fiction out of court. This slope, it is so slippery. Yes. So much problems here. All right. So, Crazy Cat Queen, I see your comment. I am flagging it. We'll get back to it. All right. Now, I am the perfect person to talk about this one because I think I'm the only elf out there online. So we're going to, I'm just going to flag myself as a subject matter expert here. Isn't Lord of the Rings public domain? Does that change anything? It is so not public domain. It is the opposite of public domain. It is the Tolkien estate will sue the crap out of you domain. So, yeah, it's the opposite of public domain. So he says he's still the sole proprietor. Tolkien, the grandson of J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of Lord of the Rings book series, is a controlling shareholder to the Tolkien estate and director of the Tolkien Estate Limited and the Tolkien Trust. In his roles, Tolkien can both communicate requests for collaboration to the Tolkien estate and control such collaborations. On or about November 21st, 2017, Polychron sent a letter to Tolkien explaining his love of the Lord of the Rings books and describing his authorship of Tefok and the work, which was largely inspired by Lord of the Rings. And by largely inspired, we mean it's in the same universe. It is a fan fiction. It is, I see Lord of the Rings won't enter public domain until 2044, and I will be old. I will be old at that time. So, yeah. Fanfic got legit when they made 50 Shades of Grey into something that makes money. 50 Shades of Grey, if you don't know, was a fanfic of Twilight. And they had to rewrite it and file all the serial numbers off to make it not a fanfic of Twilight in order to publish it. So, what Tefok? The Fellowship of the King. All right. So, in this letter, Polychron sought review of the manuscript by Tolkien, and he received no response. Now, I'm just going to say, if you are Mr. Tolkien, you know how many fan letters you get that say, Dear Mr. Tolkien, I love Lord of the Rings, and I have written some fanfic. And I can tell you, you know what they do about with those things? They take those letters and they throw them out. They just don't read them. For a number of reasons. One, I'm guessing the vast majority of that stuff that they get is crap. I used to do I used to voluntarily read people's writing and offer critiques. And some people liked me because I offered critiques that were honest. And some people hated me because I offered critiques that were honest. It was like a forum where you could post stuff for this. And so I had people who'd say, Runkle, although they used my username on that thing, I would love you to read this. And I had other people who would be like, I would like somebody other than Runkle to read this. Because if you're there and you want somebody to, if you're posting something for criticism and you want somebody who's going to say, this is great, everything about it is perfect, it is wonderful, then you want to ask somebody else. Because I'm the person who's going to say, hey, here's the parts that sucked. I like this part and this part, but all of this sucked. And so many people, their writing just kind of sucks. Like from beginning to end sucks. It's a thing, right? So, yeah, and this is the other thing. They toss and burn without looking at it for plausible deniability if they ever come out with something similar themselves. Absolutely. Because, yeah, if you're in the business of doing writing, the last thing you want is for somebody to say, you stole my work. Yeah. Yeah, they would tend to not accept unsolicited materials for reasons. Yep. So, and fanfic can be legit. There's some excellent fanfic out there. I mean, the stuff I was reading for for writing criticism was not fanfic. There was actually a rule on the board against fanfic. It was all original works that were just mostly bad. You know how many times it took people like 4 chapters before I knew what the plot was going to look like or what source of conflict it was going to be? So, yeah. All right. So, subsequently, on or about November 7th, and with excitement to collaborate with the defendants and the anticipation of publishing his book to the public, Polychron retained counsel to contact Tolkien, the Tolkien Estate Limited, and the Tolkien Trust regarding a potential collaboration with him on the work as a sequel to Lord of the Rings. And I'm just going to say, the Tolkien Estate does not want to really open this up as as things for sequels written by random people who aren't named Tolkien. The other thing is that if you want to reach out to an author or whatever, doing so via a novel or via a lawyer is probably not the way to get them thrilled about your existence in general. They're not going to be happy that you exist if you are sending them legal things like that. So Polychron's letter detailed descriptions of the book and the work with request for review and collaboration. The defendants, by counsel, rebuffed any attempted collaboration the very next day. To whom it may concern, please go away. Please go away. That's what he got. And I'm sure that did not make him happy. So this guy does what any sane person would do and gives up. No, he doesn't, because he's not one of those. On or about December 24th, 2019, I think that's actually supposed to be 2018 here, Polychron delivered in person to Tolkien a copy of the manuscript, identified with the copyright symbol, at his home in Santa Barbara, hoping he would review the manuscript and reconsider collaboration. On or about January 14th, he received no response. They sent a letter to Tolkien asking him to return the manuscript, and Polychron advised that he would publish Tolkien and an additional 6-book series independently. I'm just going to say, if you are like an author or whatever else, and some random dude shows up at your house to give you a copy of their manuscript, you're probably asking people for a restraining order. And he showed up on his doorstep on Christmas Eve for that. Yeah, I mean, how else did he know he was going to be home? Yeah, this is creepy. This is creepy AF. So, yeah. So, you can also tell that this guy probably is a little bit salty, a little bit upset, a little bit annoyed. So, following that, everybody that he's suing collaborated to create a television series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, ROP. I haven't watched it. I've heard it sucks. Chat, you can tell me if you like it or not. I haven't watched it. I just haven't. So, yeah. While the agreement reached between Amazon Studios and the Tolkien Estate to create the series occurred on or about November 13th, 2017, ROP was ultimately copied largely from Polychron's copyrighted book, Tolkien. As a result of the agreement, the Tolkien Estate paid Amazon Studios $250 million for the rights. That's a lot of money. You know who isn't paying me $250 million? Literally everybody. Nobody's paying me $250 million. I would love to get that, but yeah. And this is, I think, an insightful comment. Another Terry Sanderson, guy with a grudge, guy with a grievance, guy, yep. Guy with some hurt feelings for the rights to the series that ultimately copied Polychron's book and the work, and upon information and belief has earned the defendants even more since the relief of the series. Now, here we get into some really bad lines. In writing to Fotk, Polychron, while admittedly inspired by The Lord of the Rings and J.R.R. Tolkien, developed a wholly original book and concept for the work, including separate and distinct characters and storylines from the Lord of the Rings series. Well, did you set it in a unique world? Did you set it where there was no, anything like that? And yeah, I think this is a useful comment. Didn't Amazon pay Tolkien estate? Yeah, it looks like he got that backwards. Tolkien estate paid Amazon Studios. That makes no sense. It would have been Amazon Studios paying Tolkien. Okay, that's just a basic spell checking mistake there. So yeah, that's so in many cases, defendants copied exact language from Tefotk. Okay, that's going to be interesting. We'll see, them back that up. In other cases, they copied images that match the book cover and descriptions as created in the book as authored by Polychron. Okay, we'll have to see, we're going to check his receipts on that because he's got what he says are receipts. We'll check that. So on or about this, and despite, the blatant disregard, they're saying that they keep going. And yeah. So basically, I want all the money because you used all my, my work and you never had permission and you got paid $250 million for it. And you guys are terrible people who suck. That's basically, and they're actually asking that they abandon the copyright registration or assign said copyrights to the plaintiff. He wants all sorts of things. He wants this whole package through his lawyer. And let's have a look at what they say the infringements are. All right. Can everybody see that? Hopefully it's going well. And I see Koru, thank you for the gifted membership. Parallel Gen, thank you for 5 gifted memberships. Canonical Heat, thank you for 10 gifted memberships. Much appreciated. All right. So the book cover would be copyright the artist, not the author, unless the author bought the copyright. That's possible. I don't know. Dude is hoping they settle to make it cheaper than their lawyer taking it to court. I don't think he is. I think he's hoping that he wins this. All right, so they got a list here of copyright infringements, and let's embiggen. Okay, and Smallin. There we go. What in the blurry hell? I hope you can read it. So he's got the Rings of Power on the left and Fellowship of the King on the right. So minute or second. From episode 1, a dragon destroys a great eagle in flames, which he says is the exact image of the cover of my book. I mean, it doesn't really surprise me that this is something that could come up. 7:30, Galadriel becomes a warrior, takes up Finrod's sword, led her people into the thick of attacking orcs. That doesn't seem exactly the same. The notion of Galadriel becoming a warrior and taking up Finrod's sword is very specific. But also, only one of these people has the right to write about stories with Galadriel in it. And that's the Rings of Power, because they had the rights to do so. Whereas the Fellowship of the King is actually indicating here that they are committing some copyright infringement. Whoopsie doodle, as Boozy would say. I've been mocking Boozy lately, and now it's crept into my brain. And yeah, so this dude owns all the fantasy tropes, apparently, because a lot of this stuff is super common. Hobbit named Marigold X. She scared her Aunt Marigold half to death. So there, in each book, in each thing, there's a character named, named Marigold, but are they the same character in any way? Honest question, is embiggen a Canadian thing rather than saying enlarge, or am I the only one confused when you say embiggen? It's a Simpsons reference. It was a Simpsons reference to an episode where they, the line was, a noble heart embiggens the common man, or whatever, or embiggens the smallest man. So it's a Simpsons reference. It's definitely, embiggen being from the Simpsons means that it's the US's fault. So, and yes, it's a perfectly cromulent word is where that goes to. Yeah, characters named after flowers. How specific and uncommon. So yeah, person of color named Malvia X, which he compares to black-skinned traders from Greater Harad. That doesn't seem like a parallel. Just you have a black person in your story? Like, is that seriously what he's trying to claim as an example of copyright infringement? The concept of including a black person? Poof. Rob already knows about the Victorian porno idea. So I've told Rob that one. He hates it because he starts his filings that way. So, all right. Hobbit named Eleanor. And so he has Eleanor, vial of healing elfin seeds, and the only vials left are the waters of awakening. I don't know how the elfin seeds are the waters of awakening, and I'm just going to say, if you are going to say you own the concept of like a vial full of healing something, I think you're wrong. Like, Dungeons and Dragons has healing potions. Everything has healing potions. The end of the War of Wrath and refugees who'd survived the War of Wrath. Well, I'm just going to say it's not a novel concept that a war might end. And the War of Wrath, I believe, is a Tolkien concept. Let's just look that up real quick. The War of Wrath, Tolkien. And let's just say, what is this? Where do they find this? So where is this detailed? Does it actually tell us? Yeah, there's a whole lot of lore that makes me think that this is not just, from the Rings of Power, but was longer than that. So, yeah, the whole notion of a war ending to me does not seem to be super novel. Yeah, comes now the plaintiff. Don't blame me. This jurisdiction still holds to that pretty tight. Fair enough. And I mean, you want it to. I'm just not making that joke. I'm sorry. Shell C says this is going to be a very interesting motion to dismiss. I'm going to talk about how I would respond to this if I was counsel. So against the tide, or is reminding me, Lady Draconis, thank you very much for 10 gifted memberships. Much appreciated. This book literally has dedicated the life of John Rule Ronald Tolkien and his son Christopher Tolkien. J.R.R. is actually John Rondell Rule, so he got his name wrong. Whoops, that's a problem. Let's go over some of the chats here, and then we'll return to all of this. What is it? Also, make sure you like this stream. Hit all the buttons down there, the subscribe button, the bell button, the like button. Yeah, all of those help the channel. Ian, what flavors would be good for cooking the heart, in your opinion? I'm serious. Fat, like some butter, some salt, some pepper, thyme, that kind of thing. So much appreciated. All of that is good stuff. Drunk Werewolf, do you get anything taxidermied? Bear? I get stuff. I've had hides preserved. I've got a deer hide from the first deer I took that I need to make something out of. So I need to do something with. Sarah Gould, for my GPA, seeing the moose would have been enough. He loved shooting clay pigeons for my grandpa. He loved shooting clay pigeon with the family, but hunting was just an excuse to birdwatch without having to admit that was what he was doing. Yeah, I actually was super thrilled to see the moose. I was watching it through my binoculars the whole time going, this is cool, but also stop being a moose and start being an elk. So, yeah. Froggy Girl, I remember my dad was so proud to get a hunting award for getting a deer with an arrow, musket, and rifle in one season. Do you have something like that in Canada? No, but I don't think I can get enough tags to do all three. So, and I see for cooking a deer heart, look at the videos of Scott Rea. Nice. That is a good thought. What was in the bag? It was D&D stuff. You are correct. It was my D&D books. And yes, we haven't gotten to the shovel story yet. we'll get to the shovel story. All right. Can you cover Wizards of the Coast sending the Pinkertons to raid a... Yes, we're going to cover this. Curious if this would be legal in Canada. We're going to talk about that. Have you covered the Greg Ovens case? Not yet. I'm planning on doing a video on that one. Cameron Hardy case in BC is fun. We can talk about that one too. Victorian Bitcoin Prono pump and dump. Oh, geez. Nikki Crayons, wait, really? But Star Trek is an entire series of books that are basically fan fiction. So does Star Wars, but they're all licensed. They're all allowed. So, yeah. I like this comment about most fantasy writers have to write out the Tolkien before they become readable. Yeah, they have to develop their own sort of style. Feanor's hammer on an elevated display. The old doors of Khazad-dûm, which, of course, he's not allowed to write about without violating copyright. First appearance of a female dwarf ever. I mean, I think that the concept of female dwarves existing is... Yeah, I mean, Tolkien may not have written about female dwarves, but I think we knew they existed, right? What is it? Gandalf displays the power of Ulbandi's voice. Gandalf displays the power of my wizard Alatar. Okay, I mean, none of this seems super unique. And in fact, a lot of this stuff is just stuff that is based on characters that this dude on the right doesn't actually own. All right. Yes, Leonard French did a video on this. I haven't looked at Leonard French's video. So, yeah, check it out. I always love Leonard French's stuff. It came up when it was going on right now, or when I was sort of doing other stuff, getting ready for today. Did I miss you talking about the Tolkien case? No, we're talking about it right now. All of this to me seems pretty basic. And he says that there were quotes. He said that they used the same language. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that is the same language that he used here. I mean, in a lot of cases, this is super weak. Galadriel, Scourge of the Orcs. Galadriel impaled the King of Orcs. That doesn't seem like the same. So, I mean, the court's going to have to decide this, but I kind of suspect that they might get this thrown out. All right, so let's talk about how I would respond to this. Now, if I am the Tolkien estate and their lawyers, the first thing I'm going to say is, are you kidding me? The stone's on you, sir. The stone's on you. Because he's suing the Tolkien estate for, I am infringing your copyrights. So, first of all, they're going, and I see somebody asking, did he run this by a lawyer? This was filed by a lawyer. He's got a lawyer on this one. So, I think that his lawyer, I think that what's likely to happen is that the Tolkien estate first files a countersuit and says, great news, you guys infringed on all of our works and we want statutory damages. We want money back from you guys. We want you to pay us. And then they're going to ask for a motion to dismiss his suit and say, you don't have anything here, but we want to sue you. And at the end of the day, there is the non-trivial possibility that he ends up, like, I suspect that what happens is that he ends up backing off this suit because he's now on the hook. But it's possible not. I mean, he might be super keen to run this. He might be super keen to fight this all the way. He might be one of these guys who thinks that he's going to walk away from this with $250 million. And I got to say, I would you know, a lot of people would do a lot of things for $250 million. But, whoops, he's going to win a bankruptcy. That's entirely possible. He also may well win losing the rights to his own book. Like, if they take him for everything he's got, they may say, we want the rights to that book. So, you know, he may end up like in this super tragic situation, and it's his own doing. Now, what is the potential fallout of all of this? Well, the fallout that might result from all of this is there's a whole bunch of people out there who write fanfic. And fanfic is in this difficult copyright place. It is probably infringing in a lot of cases, but so if this guy gets hammered in a court ruling, this might actually have some really negative impacts on fanfic generally. So if you're a fanfic writer, this guy is probably not on your list of favorite people right now, because he's actually creating some legal threat that they generate a precedent that basically says fanfic is bad and fanfic is trouble, and, you know, that you can't do it. Now, this is a good point. Fanfic of expired copyright is actually cool too. If the copyright is expired, then you can go ahead and do it, right? If the copyright is expired, then you can go ahead and write your own, like you can write fanfic for it. I noticed some people were talking about Paradise Lost, which Paradise Lost is straight up Bible fanfic. The Inferno by Dante is straight up Bible fanfic, but they're okay because A, they're dead, and so they're hard to sue at this point. But B, if you wrote the Inferno today, like if that was your brand new novel, or let's say you wrote the Inferno recently because you're Larry Niven, and Larry Niven wrote Niven and Purnell's Inferno, which was borrowing off of both the Bible and also Dante's work. Well, that's allowable because the Bible is not in copyright. Dante's Inferno is not in copyright anymore. So you can copy these things. You can adapt them. If I want to write a sequel to Dante's Inferno, like Dante's Inferno Part 2, we're not going to talk about Purgatorio or Paradiso because they suck. But like if I'm going to write Dante's Inferno Part 2, Dante's back, you know, and this time he's got a shotgun. That's okay. I'm not going to get sued by Dante's estate. Also, don't write that book because it would be god awful. So, and people are pointing out, didn't 50 Shades of Grey start out as a fanfic? It did. It started out as a fanfic for the Twilight books. And the Twilight books, in order to actually publish it, they had to change the names, they had to change the setting, they had to change a bunch of stuff so that it wasn't a Twilight fanfic anymore. It's still awful. My wife got a copy of it. She couldn't read it all the way through. She gave up on it. But we did have fun with her reading portions of it and just going, are you kidding me? Like, that was ridiculous. See, didn't Niven start as one of the Star Trek book writers? I think Niven actually started... Niven was writing, like, in the old, like, science fiction pulps. And then eventually, yeah. I think Niven and Purnell are dead as well, sadly. I think Niven's still alive. I thought he was. So, yeah. Yeah, Larry Niven wrote one of the animated episodes. So, yeah, he had to make them not, or she had to make them not vampires. Yeah, all of that. All right, so that's sort of that story there. We're not doing 50 Shades of Leatherwork. We're just not doing that. All right. So let's do a swoop, and then I'll tell you guys the shovel story. So I promised you guys the shovel story. So when I was a young lawyer, Oh, and this, folks, tell Rob he needs to do this. He says, I've debated writing and have wanted to put some of what I've learned over the past years of practice to paper, how to navigate divorce and come out of the other side without losing yourself. Thoughts? Rob, if you don't write this, I will yell at you. Write this. I feel like we need a family lawyer who is who has a soul, who cares about people, to do this writing and to explain to people how to get divorced in a way where you don't become this angry, bitter shell of a person. Because lots of people do that and spend their entire life talking about their divorce, and that's not ideal. Yeah, and if your entire thing is about how much you hate your ex, then you might have been damaged by your divorce, and that's not good. So, Rob, write the book. So the shovel story. I'm a young lawyer at this point. I am. I'm not an articling student. I have passed the bar, so I'm officially a lawyer. But I am year one, and I'm working at a law firm. And I don't really plan to work at law firms anymore for all of that. I just want to, I just want to. Law firms don't like it when I do free work. So, yep. But anyway, I was given a problem. It was basically, hey, this file is causing one of the senior partners a headache. And the headache was this. Our client was dead. Dead. Like, it happens. Clients die. I mean, often clients are living lives that make them more likely to die than your average person, right? Fentanyl wasn't a thing. Fentanyl has resulted in a lot of clients dying, but lots of, it happens. Just because you are being charged with serious criminal offenses doesn't mean you get an immunity to cars. People get into car accidents. People get murdered. Sometimes I've had clients who got murdered by someone else. All of this stuff happens, right? So, but the prosecution did not want to drop the charges against our dead client because they wanted a death certificate. And we didn't have a death certificate because the family of the dead guy really was upset. And the last thing they wanted to do was actually send us a death certificate because they're upset, right? And like, they don't really want to be reminded that this guy was having legal troubles and so forth. So the lawyer basically said, I want off of this file. I'm assigning it to you. Get us off of this file because we're stuck in this like endless cycle of adjournments where we're going in and they're like, so what's the status of this file? And it's like, well, the client is still dead. And the prosecution's like, well, we don't have proof of that, so we're not withdrawing. So, we're not dropping the charges until we have proof that the guy is dead. And so we're stuck. We're making these court appearances. We're wasting all this time. And that's just stupid. So, we want out of this file. Like nobody's business. We want out of this file. So I go in and I talk to the prosecutor and I'm like, can you please just drop the charges and you can refile them if it turns out the client is alive? Prosecutor says, no deal. So I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to get salty. I'm going to go ham on this one. So I go in and the prosecution is like, so where are we with this file, defense? And I said, I'm on behalf of senior lawyer, like I'm here as agent. I am asking that senior lawyer be removed as counsel of record. So he would no longer be the lawyer on the basis that we have information to suggest that the client is dead, which means that either the client is dead and we can't contact them and, all of that. But I understand my friend doesn't want to withdraw the charges. Or he's somehow led us to believe that he's dead, in which case we've got a conflict of interest. We've developed, a problem on this one. But regardless, we are unable to contact our client because of his being dead. And if my friend wishes to issue a warrant, I would be happy to advise him of the cemetery where he can serve or where they can execute the warrant for our client's arrest. I suggest they bring a shovel. And the judge was sitting there, like, trying not to snicker, and just goes, Crown, would you like a warrant? And the Crown prosecutor says, we're going to withdraw the charges, because now they're embarrassed. Now it's a difficult moment. So anyway, I go back and I'm like, hey, I got those charges withdrawn. They're like, how'd you do it? And I'm like, I told them they should arrest the client and that they would have to dig. He's like, maybe not the best way. I'm like, I got off record and the last like 3 people you asked to do it didn't. So I'm thinking it's the best way. Yeah. Oh, by the way, client's still dead. He is not back. He has not come back to life. He's still dead. And I expect that he will remain dead for the rest of time. That's sort of how that usually works. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to recharge him anytime soon. So, yeah, that's the shovel story. I was just being like, all right, if you want to push this, then you can go and push this. Like, you can go arrest him. You can all of that. So, yeah, I was feeling salty. So, all right, we got some other things to talk about. We're going to get to BitBoy. I'm stalling out BitBoy because I want to get to 2 hours so that I can run the spicy thing. So, first we're going to swoop. Swoops. All right. So we had some questions in the chat about some interesting cases that I was planning on looking at. So first, have I covered the Greg Ovens case? We'll talk about that briefly. I'm planning on doing a bit of a video on this one. So, does anyone remember who Greg Ovens is? Chat, do you remember who Greg Ovens is? Have you guys been watching my videos that long back? Just like show of hands, does anybody know what I'm talking about? Because this is, I did cover it way back when, but it's been a while. So anybody, Bueller. I'm seeing no. All right. Greg Ovens is a guy with a survival channel. And he actually was on, I think it was Alone or one of those sort of survival shows, and he did quite well. But him and Greg Fowler, who is another guy who did the same thing, they went and they did a survival challenge in Canada. They were like, we're going to survive in the Canadian Rockies. And then they posted it up online. And they ended up catching a world of crap. I am 12 minutes away from being able to phrase that the way I wanted to say it. So he ended up getting charged with a bunch of things, including destruction of like park property. He ended up getting charged with fishing illegally. He ended up getting charged with all sorts of stuff because, as it turns out, when you are in like, this wasn't just like Crown land. There's all sorts of stuff you can do on Crown land that is just like government owned land. He was doing this in areas that are like national parks. And when you're in a national park, you're basically not allowed to do anything. Like, if you look at a deer and your expression is overly unfriendly, or, you know, if you make fun of a squirrel, they're going to charge you. And those charges are not gentle. They are not gentle charges at all. They are like, this is gonna hurt, because they come after you with all the pain. And so, yeah, he was doing this out in like the Banff area. So, and the worst part is that it ends up crossing 2 jurisdictions. So he ended up getting charges in both British Columbia and in Alberta. So, yeah, he got charged with a bunch of stuff, and I did a video on this, and Greg Ovens actually made comments. He basically said, "Runkle, you are a dickhead." He did not like my coverage, but I did say that it was in those videos. I said, like, hey, it kind of sucks that that our laws are so strict, but they are. You got to be aware of that, and there's some real risk to filming all of this stuff and so forth. And I also noted that what I thought they should do is ultimately cut the guy a break, because, quite frankly, I think Ovens and Fowler, and in fact, I think Ovens more so than Fowler. That's just my feeling on this. I kind of liked Ovens more than Fowler from watching the videos, but I kind of feel like Ovens, he's a guy who really just cares about the wilderness. He cares about, and he's got like a deep connection to the wilderness, right? He's one of these guys who, I think that's where he feels at home. That's where he feels comfortable. So, what I said that they should do is just have him make a video saying that he done screwed up, and then cut him a break. So, what they did instead was they had him make a video saying I done screwed up, and apparently that's going to go up online. But they're also tagging him for like $6,000, I think it is. They're tagging him for $6,000 in fines. And I just gotta say, I looked at this guy. I mean, I get the feeling he spends most of his money out being in the woods. I know he's got like a side job. I think he doesn't just sustain himself on the YouTube stuff. I think he does like a side job as well. But he's also out there, like, so I feel like the $6,000 it's a lot less than they could have hammered him with, because I've seen people hit for like tens of thousands of dollars on these things. But I still kind of feel bad for the guy. I feel like that is, yeah, I've debated doing like a fundraiser or sending the guy some cash and just being like, hey, I feel bad. Have some monies. Maybe I'll invite him on the channel. I think he'll tell me, if I invite him on the channel, to go F myself, because he did not like my first video. I'm just gonna say. So I suspect that's where he's going to land on that one. But yeah, I don't think it's entirely unreasonable. But I don't know. There's people out there, like, and there's influencers out there who I think are a lot more disrespectful of the wild than he was. I think he was just trying to be out there, just trying to connect to it. But yeah, and I see, national park rules: take nothing but photos, leave nothing but footprints. I think even the footprints they don't like, to be honest. What did they do to the land that they took as most problematic? He fished and he caught some trout in a lake that is no catch. So the catch limit is 0 on that lake, and he took more than 0 fish. So because of that, that was one thing. They also built like a little tree fort up in the trees, and that was more destructive. So yeah, that's kind of that. I honestly hope he recovers from this. I hope he keeps his YouTube video going. I hope he keeps his love of the outdoors. That's just my thoughts on that. So, yeah. Cut trees, caught fish. Yep, that's basically the crux of it. So, yeah, he broke fishing laws and only got a $6,000 fine. I do know that a lot of people have taken a lot more in terms of fines. Fowler is the guy from Maine, right? If so, he does it in Maine all the time, but he should have researched the laws. Fowler will never come back to Canada. Fowler's got an arrest warrant out. So Fowler, if he lands in Canada, is arrestable. I mean, I think Fowler should just come to Canada and just face the charges. It's because Canada's a nice place. Even after he faced the charges, I think they'd let him back. So why not come and just deal with it? And I think Fowler makes like a ton of money on his channel. So like just come, pay the fines, do the thing, move on. But you know, it'll be interesting because if Fowler's ever in a plane, for instance, let's say he wants to drive to Alaska because he wants to do something in Alaska. Well, he can't, because if he drives across that border and they run his name and they see that he's got a warrant, he's going to end up in custody. And if he flies to Alaska and bad weather hits and they divert his plane into Vancouver or something, then he's going to get yanked off that plane. They're going to yeet him off the plane, not like physically yeet. They're going to pull him off the plane, and they're going to, they're going to arrest him. So yeah, poaching is poaching, honestly, but you have to research the areas you're going to be in, regardless of where you're going. Yep, you got to know where you're going to be. It's a great time to have a GPS so that you, so you don't wander from an area where you're allowed to hunt into one where you're not. And they see, depends if it goes on the criminal record, the border will stop him. It won't go on his criminal record. So it just won't. Ian, you can come visit us in Ketchikan, Alaska. That would be cool. I've never visited Alaska. I saw a show about Alaskan homesteaders, and I thought that was the super coolest thing. I thought that was amazing. So that is awesome. Tactical Moose, thanks for the Monday stream. Got to get going now. Thank you. We're just about to get to BitBoy Crypto. We got 3 minutes before I'm going to start talking about BitBoy Crypto because I want to roll the spice. So instead, I'm going to pull out this Nevada Reaper soda. It is now lukewarm because I don't have a fridge in here, and that is a terrible mistake on my part. Because this soda that is not good cold is probably going to be even not good warm. So it is listed as, I just want to show the chat. You see the spice list or the spice thing? It is way up top. All right. Let's see how we're doing. And Crazy Cat Queen has an excellent question here. What would happen if you were legit lost in the forest and starving? Do you think they'll forgive you? If you are legit lost in the forest and starving, then that opens up all sorts of rules. Like normally you can't fish with dynamite as a real big example. But if you were actually like, if you had a plane crash or something like that, and you had to, and you found a mine site with some old dynamite. Don't touch old dynamite, by the way. Old dynamite can get spicy in your hands. Don't touch old dynamite. Don't touch new dynamite, quite frankly. It's a bad idea. But, in theory, it might be legal for you to fish with that. And I see, is this the same argument that cannibalism may be okay if there's no other food? Yes, although the law doesn't allow you to murder if there's no other food. But if the guy dies on his own and you ate them because you're starving, they probably wouldn't be able to convict you. Another example is like, let's say you are lost in the middle of nowhere, right? And you are you're hiking, you are literally in the middle of nowhere, and you come across a hunter's cabin. And this hunter's cabin belongs to somebody. It's full of their supplies. It's full of their stuff. It's full of their whatever. But if I go and I am starving to death, or hunger takes a while to actually kill you. Let's say I'm injured. I've been gored by, I don't know, a deer, and I am bleeding to death, right? I need to find something for medical attention or whatever else. I might be entirely within my rights to break into that hunter's cabin to look for like bandages and whatever else, maybe a phone. So that's the doctrine of necessity, but necessity is complicated. And the reason why I say it's complicated is that you have to be actually in danger of your life, like, or actually in some real danger. And you have to balance out the good with the bad, like you can't like say like, oh, I sprained my, or I stubbed my toe and it hurts, so therefore I'm going to set fire to somebody's cabin, right? So yeah. Yeah, and I see emergency survival situations, they wouldn't, I assume that was supposed to be prosecute you for surviving, but recreational survival, they will. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So we're going to try this. Let's. Now this is listed as like maximum spicy. You can see on this thing, not only is it all the way up the list, it's actually exploding off the top. I can say this is actually kind of tasty. All right. So it has been 2 hours and everybody knows what time that is. All right. And we've got the perfect beverage for it. That's actually kind of tasty. I will drink this again, I think. The jalapeno flavor, not so much. The habanero was okay. This one's actually kind of tasty. Sweet and spicy. I'm going to see how I feel about it when I get to the end of it, because I might not like it by the end. But for right now, it's pretty good. I see, would humans find it spicy? Some humans definitely would. So, analytic sip, you can see processing going on. Yep. So, all right. Does it taste like something? It tastes mostly like sweetness. So, and yeah, this is potentially the issue. How about when it gets to the end of you? Yeah, who knows? This one I like. This one I kind of like. Also try Sichuan spicy. I love good Sichuan or Szechuan or however you pronounce. It is. If you guys don't know, what is it? Szechuan cuisine has a type of spicy that is found in nothing else. And it's found only in that it is hot and numbing peppers. And I can tell you some of those hot and numbing pepper products, like some of those foods, will really hammer you. But they're so good. Nick Rich, I see you in my chat. Behave. Just like chill. You don't need to be here swearing. You don't need to any of that. We get your views, and that's it. We'll just you can have your thoughts. We'll have mine. This is not really the stream for it, so just relax. We're just having a chill hangout stream, and yeah, Sichuan peppers are great. RIP used to have an Asian place that had a beef dish swimming in Sichuan pepper sauce. Yep. There's a place near me that does dan dan noodles that are heavy on the hot and numbing peppers, and they are so good. So good. I could just eat those like all the time. All right. So let's talk about BitBoy. BitBoy is something else, huh? All right. So I'm just going to try to get this going. We're going to pull up. So BitBoy Crypto had a date with the court, and he continues to behave in a fashion that I would consider ill-advised. Ill-advised. But and it's funny because he keeps posting about how he's like a financial advisor, but he's also shilling gambling, and that seems weird. But I'm just going to note here, there's some interesting aspects. So he continues to do some crazy stuff, at least in my view. Let's pull this up. Let's have a look at his Twitter. All right. So BitBoy fleeing country to Estonia as he narrowly escapes jail is his next upcoming space. That's just great. He posted a joke about this is Ben's social media manager. He's currently on his way to jail. It's been recommended he serve some serious time. We're trying to secure a sponsor for his stint in jail. And then just kidding. It's up only snitches, always sponsored by stake.com. He actually wore his sponsorship tie to court. That's a bold choice. But now you might be wondering what actually happened in court. So I've got the order here. All right. And give me a second here. I'm just pulling everything up. And Nick Rich, take some time out because you need a new topic. All right. So let's have a look at what was ordered. And all right, I'm just going to stop screen, present screen. I got to juggle all of this stuff. Here we go. All right. So we've got, Edwin Garrison et al. And Ben Armstrong et al. Or discharging show cause order as to defendant Ben Armstrong, which means he's off the hook for now. And I think the court is being a total lightweight on this one. So, this cause is before the court following this court's April 20th order to appear and show cause. They ordered him to appear before the undersigned and to show cause why he should not be held in contempt for violating this court's April 12th order, which directed him to appear on April 20th to address plaintiff's allegations regarding harassing and threatening communications directed at plaintiff's counsel. So, he was directed to show up. He didn't show up on the 20th. He posted various things bragging about not showing up. And then he just, But the court basically said, having seen him now in person, we are, we're discharging this. So they note this court has considered the relevant portions of the record and is otherwise fully advised in the premises. The court also heard from plaintiff's counsel, Adam Moskowitz, and defendant Armstrong, who personally appeared and read a statement on the record at a show cause hearing held on April 24th. As stated on the record at the show cause hearing, and finding defendant Armstrong has complied with this court's show cause order, which is because he showed up, they have discharged the order. It is further ordered and adjudged, so he's got a further direction here. And so this is sort of a going forward. The defendant, Ben Armstrong, is admonished to continue to comply with this court's April 20th, 2023 order, directing him to cease and refrain from posting or sending harassing and threatening communications, including paper and electronic communications and telephone calls, directly or indirectly to plaintiff's counsel, Adam Moskowitz, his family, his partners and associates, the Moskowitz law firm, and any party or counsel in this case. Failure to comply with this court's order will result in the imposition of sanctions, including contempt proceedings. As noted on the record, no further relief was requested by plaintiff's counsel at this time. Moskowitz was a mensch on this one. And what I mean by that is that Moskowitz basically, I think, had everything lined up to say, you have to hit this guy. You have to hit him hard. And Moskowitz says, you know what? We're good with an order that he knock it off. This is being the bigger guy. This is being the, the better person here. But if I was the court, I would have said, understanding that plaintiff's counsel is not asking for anything further, we are still going to hammer you a little bit. I would have hit him with some penalties on this. Just because there's so many people, he's got 1 million followers on his Twitter. Now, admittedly, a bunch of those followers are bots that post the same thing to everything he says, but some of them are people, and I assume a number of them are people. This would have been the perfect instance for, hey, there's going to be some find out here, and there's going to be some communication to the public about why you don't do this and why you take court seriously. This makes me annoyed, because if the court is ever wondering why people don't take them seriously, it's because you don't deliver on your threats. If you're making the threats, you got to back them up. And the court here flinched. The court blinked and didn't do anything. So now I'm also going to note that there are a ton of people who do less serious stuff than this guy who do end up in jail. There's a lot of people who've missed court dates because their car broke down who end up in jail. There's a lot of people who, this kind of thing. And it kind of, I am not super thrilled with this one. Now, BitBoy says that this is because he was able to, and I'll just note here, as further explained on the record, the court's orders extend to conduct by Mr. Armstrong intended to cause others to engage in such conduct on his behalf or his behest. So basically, they've ordered him to stop talking about Adam Moskowitz online, and they will have given him a talking to. And that talking to is basically that, and if he breaches that, then the judge might give him another warning, I guess, because the judge doesn't seem to have any appetite for actually delivering on, on those issues. So, I don't know. I find this to be, this is perplexing to me, is the way I'll put it. I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity to actually do something meaningful here, and to actually, to show that your court is one that should be respected. So I think the court screwed up. I think that the court missed the opportunity on that. So, all right, let's also look at BitBoy has made a promise to his followers. We're going to look at that as well. So we're going to pull up BitBoy's promise to his followers. And that's us too, right? Because we're going to keep following this case. So Judge Damien in this case was amazing. We'll be posting the transcripts as soon as they are available. Yes, please. Yes, please. I would like those transcripts. Please and thank you. We will go over those transcripts. So, yep, absolutely. And yeah, weak judges are damaging the credibility of the court. Yep. So, and he posts the same order we just went over. He says, there's a lot of questions about where these voicemails came from. Considering the record will show it's impossible, I could have made them. Yeah, the court's aware that you probably didn't make all of the voicemail calls or whatever. The court is just also aware that the stuff that is directly posted to your Twitter feed is kind of directed to get some of those things to happen. So, yeah, I don't know. It's, and the other, we're just going to pull this up again here. It's, sorry, I just, he's also not being super honest to his followers. You got a restraining order, didn't you? Nope. The order literally says that he's admonished to continue and that he will be held, that he will face sanctions. It's not a restraining order, strictly speaking, but it's a, it's an order restraining his conduct. It's what most people would call a restraining order. So I don't know that he's being super honest on all of that. I think BitBoy got lucky. And I suspect that there was probably a little bit of, what do you call it? Uh, a little bit of groveling that went on there. Now, I note it was referred to the FBI, but it probably won't go anywhere there either. We'll have to see. I'm just also wondering when he says that it was impossible to make those voicemails. I'm not sure. Like, it's really difficult to have it's really difficult to have an alibi for a voicemail. About the only alibis I've seen be successful on a voicemail issue is situations where somebody's like literally in prison. And so the only phone calls they can make are monitored. This is a good point. This might be an alibi. Streaming. I could probably show that I'm not making any phone calls right now, right? Because there was actually an interesting case where a guy tried to use a live stream as an alibi for a crime, but it didn't work out because he was playing a recording as a live stream and he wasn't interacting with the chat. But you see, I'm here interacting with the chat. It's like I can just pull up, this one. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm pulling it up just because it's a recent, comment here. I'm interacting with the chat. So I'd have a really good alibi. Everyone can see I'm not making phone calls. I'm not calling Moskowitz's law firm and, threatening them or anything else. I mean, I got my phone, but I'm not on the phone. But if I was charged, like if I was facing something with regards to making a text, then I might be in some, this might not be an alibi. They might say, hey, you could have texted during this. This is a useful one there. And the young thug judge is giving jail time, assigned essays, told to buy colleagues lunch and donate to charity for contempt. I got a story about that. So we will talk about that as well. Says they also got him on CCTV while he was supposedly live streaming around the victim's house. Yeah, that's a real awkward thing when your alibi is obviously false. And Trufflehound just ducking in to cheer on the Monday Funday. It's Anzac Day here. I've been away since 4 a.m. and now I'm off to drink some beers, lest we forget. I don't really know what Anzac Day is about per se, but cheers. Have a beer in my name, and have a great one. That's a neat way to force streamers to answer chat, acknowledge my message, or your alibi is busted. That's kind of funny. Do you think the court is just giving him enough rope? I mean, right now, BitBoy Crypto, I got to say, a lot of people on his Twitter are saying that they've noticed a change in his tone, that he's not mocking Moskowitz anymore. Well, I'm guessing that's because his lawyer, assuming his lawyer is like in the same time zone as Competence, has said, like, listen, you can't do this anymore. You will literally be in a cell. Oh, and I'm seeing it's Veterans Day equivalent. So happy Anzac Day. And yeah. And so I think he's actually, I'm going to give him some points. He seems to be learning. BitBoy Crypto is learning. He's getting better. He's not good. I don't think he's ever necessarily going to be a good person per se, but he's getting better. He's behaving better. And so long as he's able to resist the urge to, post anything taunting Moskowitz, he'll probably stay out of custody. And now he gets to fight this on the basis he wants to fight it. He gets to fight this on the basis that he says, listen, I never, he says that he never, shilled these currencies. And if that's the case, then he may have a good case for a motion to dismiss. Like, fight this like you're fighting this in court. I guess I'm glad to see that he's actually doing that, but I would have I would have liked to see the court actually sort of that the court would actually follow through on sort of their threats there. I think Moskowitz was too nice, and the court was too nice. But I suspect that ultimately a lot of what it came down to was probably Moskowitz saying, "We're good." So, whew, that is that's actually not bad. Do I think the court is baiting him? A little bit. If he does it again, if he screws up again, like if he goes and posts something, another post saying like Moskowitz is a this and is a that, and all of that. I think the court may say, "All right, we're going to come after you." How long does live streaming remain a feasible alibi with deepfakes? The real interesting thing will be how long video evidence becomes feasible. Because there's going to be a case at some point where somebody has surveillance footage, and that surveillance footage is faked. That will happen. Will the case have a public jury? I mean, none of it's going to be public. It's federal court. They don't publicize anything. So, yeah, and it may be a slap or may not be a slap on the wrist next time. That is true. I also want to talk about some other news. This is big news, and I think a lot of you have already heard it. But Lawyers and Dragons is coming back. I am super excited. I get to play Gimlet Otter Fiegel again. So, and that's going to be May 27th. We're going to be running some. We're going to be running some Lawyers and Dragons again. I am super looking forward to it. Oh, and I'm told I missed a swoop. Trent Van is saying, didn't know it went away. I mean, what happened is we wrapped up one season. Season 1 wrapped. It had a good arc, right? It had all of the stuff. We had a good wrap and all of that. And we were basically saying we're going to rest, we're going to recover, we're going to do this again because this is so much fun. And then Rick had a stroke, and that was a rough thing, right? We were all terrified. We were all worried about Rick, right? And everybody really pulled together to help fund his rehabilitation, to help with all of that. That was fantastic. And Rick has been amazing in terms of recovering, right? He's a real warrior. I can say that the recovery work that Rick has put in is he's braver than anything I've ever done. Like that is super awesome. So Rick, and I see he looks really good for having had a stroke. I can see little tiny signs of it on Rick, but you have to have seen him before and after. And I feel like you have to, I've got a background in psychology. I know some, I sort of know some of the places to look. But his recovery is amazing. It's just something, but we didn't want to press him, right? We didn't want to rush Rick along, right? So all of us there, like, we want Lawyers and Dragons. We want Lawyers and Dragons like back, but we also don't want to tell Rick like, hey, when are you going to be ready to do this? When are you going to be any of that? We wanted for Rick to tell us when and if he was ready, right? Because that was always a worry. And so anyway, Rick messaged sort of the Lawyers and Dragons group, and he's like, hey guys, I have an idea, or I have a thought. I just wanted to make sure that that you guys are all okay with this. Would you guys be okay if we started up Lawyers and Dragons again? And I can tell you the response from everybody was, yay! Like, oh my God. So we're going to do that. And I am so excited. So eager. And I see John Carter is asking, what is it that I am drinking? I am drinking Nevada Reaper soda, which is supposedly super spicy. It says, warning, this soda is very hot. Your mouth may catch fire. Drink at your own risk. It's not that hot. But yeah, it's just I'm super excited. I'm super super fascinated by it. And I see Lawyers and Dragons, a D&D thing. Yes, indeed. I'm not going to read your username, but it is indeed a Dungeons and Dragons thing. I play a criminal wizard. Rick plays Nobody, who is a tiefling paladin. Alita plays a cleric who apparently likes to eat pig people. That's a little concerning. And Rob, Law and Lumber, plays... I know he's got an actual name, but everybody just calls him Glitterblade now. And yeah, he is a stabby rogue with a unicorn and glitter. So it's somewhat serious. It's somewhat funny. It's a really good vibe. David, also known as Prototopics, is the DM. He is an amazing DM. And yeah, it's a great it's a great game. So yeah, somebody's saying link to the original. It is on Rick Hoag's YouTube channel. That's where that all goes. If you want to see my Dungeons and Dragons thought, those are on Roll of Law, which is my Dungeons and Dragons. Basically, I made a geek stream for that so that it was just there for because I can't put all my geek content on this channel because otherwise it just destroys the metrics. So yeah. I see don't forget your character steals everything, so you can see Rick, or you can see, and Rick died all the time. Rick doesn't die all the time. He just gets eaten by things all the time. And my character doesn't steal everything. He does steal quite a few things. He's stolen a couple of different bags of gold. So it's a thing. I mean, he's a criminal wizard. So yes, Rob's got many names. Ghostblade is, I think, his actual name. Glitterblade is what we call him. Lumberloss. Yeah. Gimlet doesn't steal everything. He has a familiar for that. Yes, Gimlet's familiar is a flying monkey that also is a kleptomaniac. So it's crazy. So yeah. All right. Yeah, a wheelbarrow is necessary to carry all of that gold. Yep. I recommend watching. We have guest stars who come on, and it's always a good time. But Emily D. Baker was on for one of the guest episodes. It was a courtroom episode. It is hilarious. Emily D. Baker was playing our defense counsel, and it's awesome because yeah, Gimlet gets up on the stand. Gimlet had to testify. Gimlet as a witness is amusing, and yeah, it was a good time. I see monkey, not a niffler. I don't know what a niffler is, but it's a flying monkey. So yeah. All right. Yeah. Kurt was before that. He's how you wound up in court. Yes, Kurt was very much helpful in terms of getting us into the trouble, and the rest of us had to then get out of trouble. So all right, now I'm just gonna see if there's any Gimlet pulled out the racist card. Oh, how we laughed. Yeah, they were commenting on Gimlet having too many names, which is a gnome trait. So yeah. Now this is interesting. I haven't followed this case, but I'm gonna have to check it out. Linkletter and Proctorio case, where an ex-UBC staff whistleblower got sued for tweeting unlisted YouTube links. His anti-slap just got dismissed by BC Court. I will have to check that out. That is cool. Nifflers are from Harry Potter. They find gold. I don't think he necessarily Gimlet's familiar doesn't Dismas doesn't necessarily find gold. It just takes whatever. So yeah. Right. I do have some other things I wanted to talk about here, and we'll get to some super chats. So that we'll cover. So, all right. So Susan, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. Here for years for Ian's fridge fund. That yeah, I don't know. I've got to find room for it. I got to clean all this up. Kale Pegasus, Ian, where did you get your law degree? University of Alberta, here in Edmonton. So we'll have to check that. Yeah, this is something that should get fixed. YouTube still doesn't have a flip playlist option yet. It's crazy. Half these channels have the playlist backwards, which defeats the purpose. That would be a useful thing. I don't know how you fix that. Hey, Runkle, do you play Magic the Gathering? No, I don't anymore. I used to. I played Magic the Gathering back in the days of like Arabian Nights. I can tell you I have lost more money on Magic than you. I mean, it was never my money, but I've lost a ton of money on Magic because I had a bunch of cards that got misplaced. And I will tell you that if I still had those cards, I would be selling them to be very, to pay off my mortgage, honestly. So, yeah. I can't get back into Magic. I've tried. The magic isn't there anymore. So the stuff that I used to like about it when I was a kid just isn't there. I also used to make money on Magic the Gathering because back in the day, I had memorized the full text of every single card because I was weird. And so I used to run bets where somebody would just name a card and we'd each have a pack at stake. And if I could read off everything on the card, then like from memory, then I'd get their pack. And if not, they'd get my pack. I never lost a pack. I used to take people for packs on that. And people thought it was fun because, I was a kid. So they thought that was hilarious. And because of that, they, because of that, people would like encourage new people to take me up on that game. I both like and hate that there's only one ring card ever in the series. I'm kind of tempted to buy a pack just because of that, just for the amusement. And I haven't played Magic the Gathering since phasing became a game mechanic. Yeah, I stopped before then, I think. I used to have a Homrid deck. It wasn't good, but it was funny because if the Homrid deck got moving before somebody else could stop it, I'd be like, yeah, I'm attacking you with like 13, 5/3 creatures. And it was just real bad. All right, so let's talk about some other things. Do I have a photographic memory? I do not. I just, for some reason, had... this is probably what it was. So... Super chatting because Tolkien, cannibalism, and D&D all in one stream, and I missed the first 90 minutes. Really appreciate your Monday streams. We got a few other things to talk about here. I played Black Green Stompy. My favorite deck for Magic the Gathering back in the day, I had an Abyss deck. And so I forget which set that was. Legends, the Dark, one of those. They introduced these enchant worlds. And the Abyss was a card that every turn, each person during their upkeep had to permanently kill a creature. Like it just went away. So I also used this card that let you take creatures out of the game temporarily and then put them back. And basically it was completely a deck that shut down creatures as a source of damage. And then all I did as sources of damage was things that were like cursed land that does 1 damage to the other person every turn forever. I also I was the only person who ever ran that I know of. I was the only person I ever saw run a card called Tackle Maggot. Seriously. And Tackle Maggot was this thing where you play it on a creature and it loses a toughness each turn, but when it dies, it moves over to another creature. And if there's no other creatures, it moves and starts eating the other player or whatever player owned the creature it last died on, basically. And yeah. See, hi from British Columbia, Canada. Greg Ovens follower. That's how I found your channel. Welcome. I hope you're not too annoyed at me, but yeah. Tackle Maggot was a terrible card, and I ran it seriously, and it worked. It was funny. So let's talk about this one. Can you cover Wizards of the Coast sending the Pinkerton mercenary group to raid a Magic the Gathering YouTuber's house on Saturday? Curious if this would be legal in Canada. So let's talk about some background. I'm not going to play the guy's video because it's his video. So what happens? This guy orders a box of cards, and he's planning on doing a live stream where he opens up cards on stream, right? That's a thing, apparently. So he is doing this live stream thing where he is opening up these cards, and oh, I'm being told I need to swoop. Swooping. Oh, here for years. Have a good night. Basically he's, just opening these cards, but what happened is that he got sent a set that is not supposed to be out yet. So he got sent a set before anyone else got it, but he paid this money legitimately through a distributor. And so he didn't do anything wrong. He just got sent, these cards that weren't supposed to be out yet. So Magic the Gathering got real upset by this. They got very annoyed. And so they hired the Pinkertons. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, the Pinkertons, is that really a thing? Like, aren't they just fictional? No, the Pinkertons have a long history and a somewhat ugly history because they used to be strike breakers. They used to be all sorts of, violent things. But anyway, the Pinkertons went to his house and they said, we need these cards. And if you don't give us these cards, you can be arrested. Now, I find it very difficult to think that they could actually arrest him for this. At least here in Canada, he would have been 100% in the right on this. He would have been 100% in the right to tell them, go F yourselves. These are my cards. And in fact, Magic's, like Hasbro's and Wizards of the Coast's remedy for that would have actually been not to go after him, but to sue the distributor who screwed up and to seek damages. That's where they should properly have sought their remedy. And so here in Canada, I think that there could have been some interesting charges laid, not against the dude who got the cards, but against the Pinkertons. It could have been that the Pinkertons got charged with things like robbery for showing up and threatening violence. So I think I'm on team dude who got the cards. He did nothing wrong. It's the distributor, and they should have gone after their distributor. So if I was Wizards of the Coast, I can tell you how I would have responded to this. Because if I'm Wizards of the Coast, I want those cards back, right, until they're released, or I want this guy under an NDA. I would have gone over and been like, hey, we know you did nothing wrong. We will give you like 100 boxes of cards. Or hell, we will dig into our vault and we'll pull out like a box of Arabian Nights and give it to you from the vault if you give us this back. And then that guy, at that point, he's going to be like oh my God, yay, right? He's going to be super thrilled when he, because at that point he's being offered a huge opportunity. What does he do? He goes and does a video to say, Wizards of the Coast just gave me a box of Arabian Nights, and I'm going to do a live open of my Arabian Nights, or he's just going to sell it and make a ton of money. But you better believe that this guy is going to be there. Like, he's going to be Wizards of the Coast's biggest booster at that point. He's going to be like, I'm taking those videos down. I did, this, I did that. And it cost Wizards of the Coast basically nothing, for them. I see somebody's noting, I think Arabian Nights is a $70K box. I can tell you $70K for Wizards of the Coast budget is cheap. Like, that's penny candy at this point. Pay the money. And just, solve it, right? That solves it. And it might, so I think they goofed. I think they goofed in a big way. And yeah, there's all sorts of possibilities. I mean, if they didn't want to give him a really good, cool box, they could have said, hey, you know what? We'll take this box back. Once the set is released, we will give you 20 boxes from the same set, or 100 boxes, right? Because all of that is like super doable. So I see Angela DeLay, my great-great-grandfather was beaten by Pinkertons for union organizing of coal miners in the early 1900s. My family doesn't like them for a reason. Your great-great-grandfather was a badass. That is, yeah. So I think Wizards of the Coast screwed up. I think that he potentially has a claim against Wizards of the Coast, but he'd have to talk to his own lawyer about that. I just don't understand that. So, yeah, people should note that it's 70,000 because it's old and out of print. Magic is expensive, but not that expensive. Yep. Can I do any magic tricks? Not well. So yeah, that's a good one. And the other one that I want to talk about, because I guess it's a thing, is Cameron Hardy. Now, you guys probably, I don't know, chat, have you heard the name on this case? Because you may have heard of this case without necessarily knowing it. Now, I actually covered Mr. Hardy beforehand. I did a video talking about Mr. Hardy before this recent thing. Yeah, the guy's a streamer. Getting a shout out from Wizards of the Coast might be more valuable to him. Make him a freaking card. Like, hey, just be like, finder of lost things, 8/8 with some cool power for 4 mana or something. You could have made this guy a card, like have an artist paint a picture of him, put him in the next set as a card. And you know how awesome that would be? Like, for a streamer and a fan, like, come on. There's so many things that are just right up there, like, that are just easy. And yeah. All right. We are doing the swoop. And thank you, Willow, for the super sticker. It's much appreciated. This will be our last story because I got to, wind down. This room is, my computer is overheating it and I have no ventilation. I haven't yet switched this room from like winter mode where it's all insulated to summer mode where I've got air conditioning. So I am boiling. I got a note here. So yeah, League has items named after employees/streamers. I think Omwrecker is the only one left to the OG Roundup. Yeah, I mean, they could have done that, right? Wouldn't that have been awesome? But no, they had to be jerks about it because of course they did. Of course they did. All right. So let's talk about Mr. Hardy because he's a good example of a situation where we can learn from from someone else. All right. So, and poof, there we go. All right. And I see here there's somebody saying, is my backyard free of ice and/or poop? it is free of ice. It is still full of poop. I can say that. Zora and Potter are big dogs. They produce a lot of number 2. And yeah, I see somebody saying open the door for air. I can't open the door for air because it really opens onto the rest of my house. And my wife is not sort of a huge fan of the idea of ending up on a stream. So crack a window. I would have to fight to get to my window. So right now I'm just going to suffer through it. Now, I talked about this guy beforehand because there was a case where the court was earlier mocking him because the guy is, Cameron Hardy, who calls himself a man known as Cameron Hardy. So they mocked the heck out of him. And here we have Rex versus Cameron Hardy, also known as a man known as Cameron Hardy. Now, I'm going to do a video where we go through this thing in full, but I'm just going to note here that they mock the heck out of this guy. Counsel for the Crown person, appearing on his own behalf, Cameron Hardy, also known as a man known as Cameron Hardy. Amicus Curiae, A. Turton, King's Counsel. So this guy is a sovsit. This guy is a freeman on the land. This guy is a weird guy. And the reason why there's an amicus curiae is because the court has basically said, we need you to have a lawyer in the room because you are a crazy person. And at least there should be a sensible person here to, to advise you if you want to take that advice. And maybe this is the first one of these spicy ones that I've gotten through to the bottom of. I will order that one again. All right. So this guy is also there to provide some, some backup and some indication because Cameron Hardy is not able to represent his legal interests, but the court wants somebody there who can say like, hey, court, you're stepping over this guy's rights, and this is a legal argument, right? So, yeah. Joe Loy, LMAO, you remind me so much of my beloved man. Well, thank you very much. Is there a sovsit that is not weird? I don't think that's a thing. All right, so on September 1st, 2022, I found Cameron Hardy guilty of in facie contempt of court, also known as contempt in the face of the court. He is a disciple of Organized Pseudo-Legal Commercial Arguments, OPCA. This is a Canadian term which basically encompasses freemen, sovereign citizens, Moors. There's various flavors of them, but yeah. I see. Wait, if you work for the Crown, you would have been I Runkle QC and then I Runkle Casey. The Queen's Counsel and King's Counsel doesn't indicate that you work for the government. They're an honorific. They're basically like, you are awesome. And I can tell you, I am unlikely to get that honorific because I do these YouTube streams, which some lawyers kind of think is kind of grimy and gross. So I don't see it happening in my lifetime that I get that sort of designation, but it'd be neat. See, wow, sovereign citizens is a thing in Canada too. It is. So he proclaims that he was created by the creative source. He claims to be a man of mankind, being something other than a human being. Simply put, he says that he is a man, a mankind, not some legal identity on a piece of paper that was created by man and owned by man. Accordingly, in his mind, he is not a person or an individual, and therefore the courts of British Columbia hold no jurisdiction over him. He rejects the name Cameron Hardy. Instead, he self-identifies by various names, including a man known as Cameron Hardy and a man commonly called Cameron Hardy. For my decision, I will simply refer to him as Hardy. Note, it is not the Hardy we all know and love. It is not this Hardy. Hardy the cat is sweet and lovable and only engages in certain kinds of crime, like tax evasion and selling people Windex encrusted food. So, yeah, I just think it's kind of funny that this guy is also a Hardy. We got a question here. Philip Martin, how is a freeman different from a sovereign citizen? They are different flavors of the same kind of weird idea. Sovereign citizens are saying that they are sovereign citizens are basically like, we are, going to form our own country where we've got our own rules. Freemen on the land have this notion of like the courthouse is a boat, which is weird. It's crazy. And yeah. Didn't you read this months ago, or is this a follow-up to that case? It's a follow-up. This is the same court proceeding, just now the court is now the court's got some opinions. So the court is now deciding what to do with him. Even if I'm wrong about Hardy's legal name or his status as the defendant on the substantive matter today, I'm sentencing the person who was standing in front of this court on September 1st, 2022, who committed the contempt in the face of the court. So, yeah. The courts of British Columbia are legitimate, or they are not. There is no middle ground. There are no shades of gray. Unfortunately for Hardy, the courts of British Columbia, including the Provincial Court of British Columbia, are legitimate. And British Columbia and Canadian laws apply to Hardy, no matter how he identifies, what words he used to describe himself, or his political orientation. Opting out is not an option. So, yeah, he's being sentenced, and the court has wide jurisdiction to sentence him on this. So in the present case, because of Hardy's behavior and flagrant disregard for the directions and order of the court, there exists an urgent and imperative need to utilize the summary contempt procedure on day one of his substantive trial. So they are going to punish him for behaving badly in court. And they're going to punish him real bad. So real bad. So they note here some of the concerns here. In a very real sense, OPCA litigants are the victims of the con man gurus who sell supposed secrets to the real but concealed law, which isn't a thing, right? Worse, OPCA theories authorize unorthodox and illegal actions against government, police, and court workers, including violence. Pseudo-law is a form of legal quackery or snake oil, much as doctors and scientists are the most effective critics of pseudo-medical and pseudoscience frauds. Courts are the expert bodies logically and functionally positioned to refute OPCA misconceptions with clear, substantive, and responsive court decisions. So, whether Hardy is a true believer or simply an opportunist using OPCA to delay and disrupt the court process, his reliance on the discredited OPCA theory clearly contributed to his contemptuous behavior on September 1st, 2022. And even though no OPCA defense has been successful on its merits, see Hardy 2007 and Hardy 2007 for examples of how an OPCA defendant was successful on appeal because the Crown did not prove identity beyond a reasonable doubt at the trial stage. I'm wondering if that's the same Hardy. I might have to dig into this guy's entire history. So in light of the 0% chance of success on the merits of the court in the courts, why do people still espouse the OPCA theory? And he goes into a bunch of, sort of thoughts on that, and basically says, I may never understand the true reason Hardy has acted in the manner he has, but he's acted to disrupt things. He's been a jerk. So let's go to town. He's been at it for 16 years. Respect. I mean, kind of. So they also note, as a provincial court, I'm bound by precedent. I also pay heed to persuasive case law from outside of British Columbia. And so they have a bunch of cases here that have considered OPCA stuff. I might start doing a thing just talking about, like, let's do some profiles on some of these guys because they're weird people. They are strange people. In the leading case of Meads and Meads, I have not covered Meads and Meads on this channel yet, but Meads and Meads is a great case because it's Justice Rook who just went to town on these pseudo-legal theorists. And Justice Rook's conclusion was essentially the court needs to stop coddling these people and to hammer them. So this is the opposite of the approach that we're seeing in the Ben Armstrong case, right? Ben Armstrong has gotten away with his contempt and is just being told, okay, well, you made it to court. Good for you. Don't do any more harassment. These guys, on the other hand, get just wrecked. And that's partially because Justice Rook said, courts, you are weapons free. Go to town. They should get wrecked. So, yeah, these are, sort of interesting. And they noted that they said, this is talking about the psychologist aspects. They say, psychiatric investigation of freemen and sovereign citizens has concluded adherence to pseudo-law conspiracies is an expression of extreme political beliefs, which may not be left or right, specifically. They come from all sorts of different viewpoints. Reinforced in small, introspective social communities. However, the peculiar formulaic expression of these ideas mimics delusion. That has resulted in misdiagnosis of these persons as mentally ill. OPCA ideas, such as the straw man duality, have been misidentified as a mental health issue rather than pseudo-law. Court-ordered psychiatric examinations and detentions may result. The Mead's OPCA indicia are therefore a helpful resource to distinguish between persons who litigate because of mental illness versus anti-government ideology expressed in an unorthodox manner. These people are not typically mentally ill. They just have weird beliefs, right? That's just it. And I'll just sort of note this. Interesting that other lawyers are throwing shade. Ian has been a great ambassador to Canadian law with his YouTube channel. I can say that there are a number of lawyers that that basically take the view that doing legal content that is aimed towards the public, towards non-lawyers, is in some way either kind of grubby and not, unseemly, or is in some way like taking their lunch. Like, we're taking away the mysticism of being a lawyer if the members of the public can understand cases. And I actually take the opposite view. I want to say that I think that the public should understand things. The public, we always complain about the public gets law wrong on, all sorts of things. And I'm like, well, no kidding, because we spend all of our time talking to other lawyers and we spend so little of it talking to the public. But yeah, there's some people who look down on me in that sense. Gatekeeping, the word you're looking for is gatekeeping. They want people to have to pay them to not know what's going on. I mean, I think you should hire a lawyer if you have, if you've got legal issues. It's a really good idea. But I also think that people are better off hiring a lawyer if they understand what's going on. Like, it's just, it's important. Ian, have you mentioned wanting to get cameras in Canadian court? Is that a minority view? That is a way minority view. Lots of people don't want cameras in the courts. I think that is important. So this is a fun line. I have not ordered a psychiatric assessment for Hardy, finding him intelligent, albeit an anti-government ideologist. I mean, who isn't? He understands the difference between right and wrong. He's merely selected wrong over right. That is a great line. That is a fantastic line, right? He understands the difference between right and wrong. He's merely selected wrong over right. Love that. So, all right. So they talk about this as misinformation. There's a lot of lines. This is a 70-page document, folks. We're not going to go through all 70 pages because we'd be here until like tomorrow, and a lot of people would be like, oh my God, stop. Heaven forbid a lawyer actually educating the public rather than pretending they're above the unwashed masses. Kinda. That's the thing is, I get people in my offices or whatever. I've dealt with clients who are like, well, I'm just a mechanic. And I'm like, that is super cool because I can't fix a car at all. And I'm like, that it's it's just a, it's just a skill thing. Just a different level, different focus. Any thoughts or vids on the latest court proceedings in the case of firearms? I'm hoping to do a video, like a live stream, talking about what's been going on in that federal case. I just got to figure out whether I'm doing it on Thursday or Wednesday. So I don't know yet, but I will do that. So yeah, the other thing people don't like is sort of this aspect of, even doctors now are coming more to YouTube and opening that. Guess what? They're human too. Like, people don't like, some lawyers don't like that I'm just kind of human on these things, right? I can be silly. I can be childish at times. I like a good scotch. I like a, I like all these things, right? And talking about these things is, I think, important. It's really critical that we recognize that lawyers are just people. We're just folks, right? That's it. And so a lot of lawyers want to kind of come off like they're these sort of carved out of ivory figures. And I'm not. I'm just, I'm just a dude. Like, that's it. So your transparency is needed. Thanks for being you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's just, you got to do what you got to do. Somebody's asking if 70 pages is a record. Not even close. There's ones that go into the multiple hundreds. So yeah, I think LawTube lawyers are rehabbing the bad name of lawyers. I mean, not everyone, not everything online in the legal area is necessarily noble either, right? We're all people. We're all flawed. But it's just, seeing us as people is useful, right? And we make mistakes is the other thing. So he goes on and on about the mistakes. He wrote 70 pages, and he basically just notes that he will refuse to recognize the court's legitimacy over and over and over again. And yeah, he just keeps going. Now, where this starts, or where some of his troubles start, is he is obstructing a peace officer, is his charges. And this guy is having an issue with COVID masking. And you know what? Lots of people did, lots of people didn't. It was its own thing. But the problem is that it's really easy to spin something like this into a much bigger issue than it was. See, off topic, I started growing gray at 16. When did you? About then. Yeah. In my early teenagers, I guess, or teenage years. So Hardy replied. So once on the phone, the judicial justice asked Hardy if he was Cameron Hardy. He replied, "I'm a freeman being prisoned for breathing freely," followed by a monologue expressing several OPCA-style concepts. So that's how this starts. He's in there for bail. When the judicial justice tried to release Hardy on a release order, so he's trying to release him on bail, right? This guy is trying to give him bail. Hardy refused to accept any terms, starting telling of his dissatisfaction with the entire process, claimed that he was racially discriminated against, and would not agree to the judicial justice's offer of contract, which is not an offer of contract. It's the justice's dictating terms, right? The justice is telling you the terms you're going to be on. And yeah. So that's just kind of how that goes, right? So Hardy then continued with his monologue, telling the justice many things, including the justice had no authority over him. You kidnapped me. You stole from me. You abused me. You tortured me in the cell on a cold, hard concrete floor. You assaulted me. The guy fractured my ribs. He was medically exempt from wearing a mask, and the liquor store staff refused to accommodate him. He has been victimized. He has broken no law. There was no victim. He wanted his rights as a free man. The court had no authority over him as he was a freeman. So, yeah, that's sort of his thing there. So they were wondering about, what might be required. They thought they might need a psych assessment. So that's how he ends up spending time in jail over to go and see a judge. And I see, oh my God, this is over going to a liquor store. Yep. The apparent start of this is the guy goes to a liquor store and refuses to wear a mask and refuses to leave. And so the cops get called, and then he refuses to deal with the cops. And he ends up getting a charge of resisting the peace officer. So, yeah. So Judge Fleck later releases him on a release order without any financial obligation. He doesn't have to pay a single dollar to get out. Like, he's got no money on the line. He's not even on a no cash bail. Like, a no cash bail is a system where you get released and it's just, if you breach your release, then you'll have to pay money. He's got no financial obligation. The only thing is he's got conditions. And the only condition is that he must not go or be within 10 meters of the BC liquor store at 100 2nd Avenue West, Prince Rupert, British Columbia. The place where he was being a jerk. They said, don't go back there. Being asked, what is my favorite color? Blue, I think. So, yeah, he then goes into court. He says he's a man commonly called Cameron Hardy. And he told the court he was representing himself, challenged the court's jurisdiction. He told the court his language of use was English and he was not entering a plea. He demanded that the court produce a contract with him. I entered a not guilty plea on his behalf because he refused to enter a plea. All right. So he's basically saying the court has no jurisdiction because there is no contract, which the court is like, no, but we're just entering a plea on your behalf and setting it over because, yeah. He then introduces himself as, I am a man commonly called Cameron Hardy. He's asked for if he has any case law to support his position, and he repeated his request for a contract with a verifiable claim instead of replying to the question. So when specifically asked if he was Cameron Hardy, he stated no, and then continued to voice his crazy. However, he did say that he was the man that the police arrested and that he confirmed he would not have a lawyer. I will tell you, a lot of judges have adopted a particular response to this. They say, that when somebody's in court and they're asked, like, hey, are you Cameron Hardy? And the guy says, no, I'm not. It's like, okay, is anyone in this courtroom Cameron Hardy? No? Okay, well, then we're issuing an arrest warrant for Cameron Hardy because he hasn't shown up for court. That's a common answer. This judge is being very patient as compared to some of them. Yeah, he filed a document with a fingerprint, which is weird. He says, I'm not Mr. Hardy, just so you know. I'm a man called Cameron Hardy, and by special appearance, challenge jurisdiction. These guys get really specific about their names, right? They think that the names are like this fictional entity, and that if they agree to the name, that they're agreeing that the court has power over them. I am a man called Law and Lumber. Rob, do that in court. That would be hilarious, and film it. Maybe not Judge A's court, though. Judge A will tear you a new A if you do that in her court. So then they've got this further exchange where he says things like, I object, failure to produce a contract of verified claim, indiscernible. This court lacks jurisdiction, and I require the case discharged immediately, which obviously it doesn't happen. So burden of proof is indiscernible, where jurisdiction squarely counts. It cannot be presumed or assumed. It must be proven by man or woman within this court. You have proven jurisdiction. Is that what you're saying? They say, man, no one needs to prove my jurisdiction to fix a trial date with respect to information. So everything is done in sequence. I just love the court. Like, literally in the transcript, the judge is like, man, you could tell that the judge has just lost his patience. Sir, I've heard I don't need to hear submissions on this point. All right. I don't need to hear submissions on this point. And he says, and I'm objecting. So yeah, they're trying to do that. He disagrees about being self-represented. No, I don't represent anything. I represent man. Again, I'm not a person. I'm a man. And the court is trying to get through to this guy. It's not happening. So they keep going. You can see that a lot of this is just detailing all of this, sort of stuff. And he keeps going. I'm a man commonly called Cameron Hardy. By special appearance, I am challenging jurisdiction. And before I begin, I will put you on notice again. I'm a man. I speak to mankind only. And all I require is you to acknowledge that I've been given notice of this. You've been given notice of this. The court's like, I don't have to do anything, sir. I'm just like, oh my God. Did they ask him to define a man? A featherless biped, I guess. Props if you got that joke. Or that reference, I guess. So yeah, he just keeps going. I am a man, flesh and blood, mankind. It's and the court's like, well, everybody's entitled to their opinion in any event. This is just like, oh my God. So, and it keeps going. Like, this is his entire thing, right? And I said that there's 70 pages. He just keeps going on all of this, trying to, they have to mute him at one point. They have the court clerk disconnect the telephone call so the subsequent court case could be called because he just wasn't willing to stop talking after they were done. January 26th, they have more of this same sort of stuff. March 14th, they have more of the same sort of stuff. He's supposed to be in person because it's a trial date, but he appears by telephone, which he's not allowed. He says it's not his intention to use the services of legal society. These guys often have these conspiracy theories about lawyers. Like they talk about the British something. Like they think that the bar is, that. I see we're all monkeys with anxiety. Nice. Awesome. Yeah, so he just keeps going. They're trying to do this at his trial date, his second trial date. He says, I cannot wear a mask. So he's refusing to wear a mask. He says, because it causes harm. That's his own, he says, I've never worn a mask. I cannot wear a mask. So, and he says, I still have the right to have my claim heard before a trial by jury. Court, sir, there is no jury trial here. In Canada, you typically can't get a jury trial on a summary conviction offense, which is what he would have been charged with. Oh, and good night, Rob. So, yeah, he's saying, I want a jury. And it's like, you don't get a jury because this is a minor charge. But he just keeps going. This is his second, second thing. He just rolls on. He says, I'm denying your right to a jury. So, yeah. All right. So he just keeps going. Oh, my God. Like, can you see how patient the court has been on all of this? Can you see how impossibly patient they've been? Just ridiculous. It keeps going. There's a third scheduled trial date. It keeps going. Like all of this, like this 70 pages is not the judge writing argument. It's just him being a crazy person. And the Crown basically agrees that bail is appropriate. They're allowing for bail. So he's released again. He doesn't show up for court on September 9th. So they're trying to determine what kind of warrant they should send out. And they eventually decide to send out an endorsed warrant. And an endorsed warrant, the difference between an endorsed warrant and an unendorsed warrant is that an endorsed warrant is signed to allow for somebody to be released by the police. If it's unendorsed, they have to be brought before the court. That's so an endorsed warrant in this case is doing him a favor. Truffle Lounge says, imagine encountering someone this exhausting. Woo, no kidding. This would just be like so wearying. And Ryanman YYC, thank you very much for the 10 gifted memberships. It's much appreciated. So, all right. Now it just keeps going. He gets arrested. He gets released on an appearance notice. It keeps going, just like on and on and on. They get to his 4th scheduled trial date. 4 scheduled trial dates now. You know, at this point, the court is saying, like, we are tired of you. We're done with you. So further discussion, they cite some case law. They note basically that these are things that can be punished pretty strictly. And what is it? They mention the case of Royal, which was a practicing lawyer who refused to wear a mask as directed by the judge during a 3-day criminal trial. That was awkward. That was difficult. He's now retired. He was fantastic in practice, but he's now retired, Peter Royal. And so they go through the principles, which is basically, hey, we need to denounce this and deter it. So court's decision not to immediately sentence him. Why did they do that? Well, they're just basically saying we're going to have to write a huge decision on all of this. Are you sure this wasn't the U.S., Ian? Because these extra chances seem very U.S.y. I mean, they just gave him so many extra chances here, right? So yeah, it's brutal. All right, so they keep going, and let's get to the bottom line. Moral blameworthiness. They're going to find that is at the highest end of the spectrum. Aggravating factors, the brazen nature, don't get brazen with me, of Hardy's refusal to recognize the legitimacy of the Canadian court system, his refusal to comply, his delay tactics. Mitigating factors include he has no criminal record. That's it. That's the entire mitigating factors. That's the only thing in his favor is no criminal record. Sentencing range, they basically say we don't have any sentencing range exactly, so they're going to make a new one up. So they do cite some case law where they talk about, you know, all of these, where some of this stuff is going on. We're not going to go through all the case law here. Marvin DeBot, I'm not sure how that is. Thank you very much for the YouTube membership. And since September 1st, his continuing behavior confirms that he's learned nothing. So specific and general deterrence both call for a significant penalty. Specific deterrence is we need to tell this guy, particularly Cameron Hardy, a man known as Cameron Hardy, that he needs to knock this off. That's specific deterrence. General deterrence is we need to tell everyone who thinks that this is a way to behave. Everybody who might act like Cameron Hardy needs to be told, hey, this is what happens. This is the find out part of the F around, right? So, yeah. All right. So, yeah, carrying on here, they just, you know, he's truly the author of his own misfortune. Ultimately, I can tell you that if this guy had just like pled guilty to this, he would have probably got a small fine. That's probably what he was looking at, is a fine, maybe some probation, probably a conditional discharge if he's got no record and there's no prior thing. He probably would have walked out with no record, you know, just with a conditional discharge, do some probation, off you pop, right? So they say, in the circumstance, the court must bring home to Hardy and other like-minded individuals the futility of denying the legitimacy and authority of Canada's courts and the consequence of disrupting and impeding the administration of justice. No fine, a conditional sentence order, or probationary term would be appropriate given Hardy's refusal to accept the court's jurisdiction or follow its orders. We can't put you on probation if you're not going to listen to our probation order. Although I'm not ordering costs against Hardy, as set out in Fair and Canada Customs, the prospect that in future costs will be considered against OPCA type offenders in criminal contempt of court cases should not be dismissed. So they're not asking him for money, but they've thought about it. The sentence imposed is 1 year in jail. So he gets to spend a year in jail. And I can tell you, I mean, he's not going to do the full year. He's probably going to do 3/4 of it. But he wouldn't have got a year in jail if he just pled guilty to the underlying charge. And he wouldn't have gotten any penalty, likely, if he had just, like, when the police showed up and said, hey, man, you got to put on a mask. If he just walked out, like just said, okay, I'm leaving, he wouldn't have gotten any penalty. Like, this is so ridiculous that this guy ends up getting himself hammered like that. It's nuts. People are asking, can he appeal? There's ways he can challenge this. I don't think that the courts are likely to. I mean, maybe the courts will, knock it down. I wouldn't if I was, an appeal court. I see this news in the U.S. would turn that headline into Canadian man gets 1 year in jail for refusing to wear a mask. I've already seen some U.S. headlines basically saying Canadian man gets 1 year in contempt of court, which, yeah. Runkle needs to revitalize his tape pen gadget. I have that around here somewhere. Oh, yeah, it's right here. My tape pen gadget. The guy would have saved a year in prison by shutting his mouth. Absolutely. Even if he just like straight up refused to talk. Like just never said a single thing. They probably would have just ran the trial with him saying nothing. And he would have, like, that would have been it. So I am, I'm baffled by this one. So, but yeah, I see. Ironically, this type of behavior can only exist in a society that accepts and tolerates it. I'm guessing that he does not live in a location composed of 100% sovereign citizens. 100% sovereign citizens would be hilarious to see, how they interact with each other. Somebody's saying, what is a tape pen gadget? It's from a video I have about how to interact with the police. And it goes like this. So this is a thing that can keep you out of jail. It's 2 pens with some tape. And I will show you how it works to keep you out of jail. Are you ready? This is how it works. You take the things and you do this. And you put the tape right over your mouth. Because so many people get themselves into trouble by talking. So, yeah, I guess I got to, with the whole focus on shorts, I got to make a short about, like, let me show you how this thing can keep you out of jail. But yeah, that's basically it. So many people talk their way into jail, and this would be helpful. So yeah, it's just this one is such a ridiculous case. I'm just kind of saddened by it, and yeah, it is what it is. It's just I wish there was a good answer to this. I feel that this guy is so ingrained that what's probably going to happen is he's going to come back after his year is done, and he's going to say, you know what? I still think all of this, Freeman on the land crap, because he's still got his criminal charges on the go. Those are still pending. Do you think he's going to stop? Do you think he's going to slow down? Yeah, I don't see it. So I just, we'll have to, we'll have to see on that one. So, yeah, I like this one. Why use a tape pen gadget when you can make the cops uncomfy by pulling out and donning a ball gag? That might make them very uncomfortable. Uh, yeah, they also don't like, if don't call the police daddy. Um, that's not going to go well. So now, some people were asking about. I have, I guess, one more story. I'll just do a brief swoop. So some people were talking about the case where this is the young thug, I think it is, case where the judge has threatened to and has held lawyers in contempt. So I have a story on that. I was off dealing with this case, and this judge was being very difficult. And what I mean by being very difficult is that the judge, so my client had been ordered to do some drug treatment, and the judge basically said, "Hey, how do I know that your client has fully participated in the drug treatment as opposed to just going to drug treatment?" And I'm like, "Well, we have no indication otherwise." So here's what the judge directed. The judge directed that I would attend every single one of my clients' drug treatment meetings in order to take notes and report on their participation at those meetings. Now, I'm just going to note, first of all, I was not getting paid for that. Like, there's no way my client was going to be able to pay me for that. Second of all, that would be a breach of the drug treatment protocols. Third of all, that would require me to like act against my client. Like, I can't be there acting against my client. So, and it would be a breach of attorney-client privilege. It's all sorts of crazy stuff. So, anyway, I didn't do it. What I did instead was the next court appearance, I hired a lawyer. I say I hired a lawyer. I had a lawyer volunteer to do this for no money. Although I had that lawyer with money for a bail if I needed it. I had, and I told my wife, like, listen, if I'm not home when you get home, then I'm in jail. And don't worry, I planned for it. Like, I knew that this might happen. So just be aware that if I'm not here when you get home, that's where I am. Here's the lawyer that you phone. So she was aware of all that. So I walked in, and I can tell you these are how I opened up speaking to this case. I said, Your Honor, and I'm just going to note this. This judge is not a judge anymore. This judge was removed for bad conduct. They at a certain age, judges have to have their sort of judgeship renewed every so often, and they refused to renew his judgeship because of his behavior. So I was there, and I'm in court, and I start up, we're calling the matter of so-and-so. I don't even remember the client's name, and it's irrelevant. And the judge is like, oh, right. Counsel, I recall I had some questions from the last time. I said, yes. Your Honor, I understand that on the last occasion, the court directed me that I would attend these treatment sessions in person in order that I could report as to my client's participation. I have not done so, and I will not do so. And I will tell you, the judge had a big vein on his forehead that was pulsing. Just like he was pissed. So at that point, I knew I was basically going to jail, and I had to spend the rest of my submissions talking myself out of jail first, and then talking my client not into jail. So at the end of all of that, I didn't go to jail. The judge blinked. The judge did not throw me in jail. My client did not go to jail either, which was yay. But yep, I just told the court, like, I understand your court order. I am not doing it, and I won't do it. And it was a ballsy thing to do, but it was also necessary. Like, there just wasn't any other option. And yeah, I was just it was one of those weird moments. Court is full of weird stuff, but that was one of those weird moments. And yeah, I don't want to be in that situation again, because I gotta say, I was seriously concerned that I might be in jail. I actually went through all of my pockets and made sure that I didn't have anything that I might, that might be expensive if I lost it. I went through and made sure that I didn't. At the time, I was taking my attention deficit medication. I made sure I didn't have that on me because I didn't want to end up facing some sort of charge if they didn't realize that that was legit. I just couldn't do it, right? Because there's not an ethical way to do it. Sometimes as a lawyer, sometimes your responsibility is to stare down the court. And sometimes as a lawyer, sometimes your responsibility is to get beaten up by the court, right? Sometimes the court's going to have thoughts about your behavior or about your client's behavior. And sometimes it's just about, you got to just, sometimes the court's going to yell at you and you just got to live with it. It is what it is. I also see Frankie Pyro. Pardon, I had a hiccup from drinking that soda too fast. Frankie Pyro Dragon, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. I see, what did opposing counsel do? This is a funny one. So opposing counsel on that file knew that the judge was behaving badly. Unfortunately, the Crown prosecutor on that case did not have the ability. They didn't want to stay the charges because the charges were kind of serious. They didn't have any ability to get in the way of the judge's contempt power because that's a power of the judge. However, I did have a signed notice of a signed consent to bail pending appeal and consent to the appeal for basically the prosecutor said, if your client gets jail, we will consent to your client getting released. And they basically pre-signed that my client could get out. I had a plan basically that my client would be released on bail before they even got taken out of the courthouse. And the Crown prosecutor was on board because it was such a messed up circumstance. It was really a messed up case. And I'll just note, ethics should always take precedence. Absolutely. I've gotten off record on files where they threatened my ethics. I have, and I'm careful when I tell stories like this. Like, A, I didn't tell you anything about the client, just about me and the relationship with the court. B, there's no way for you to figure out who this was. You're just not going to be able to figure out who that client was. You're not going to be able to figure out any of that stuff. So if you had enough information to know who this client was, you'd be the client. So, and probably not even then. I don't actually think that this client would know that. So, that's just, you got to be careful with all of that. So ethics are important. I can say that you never, if you get busted by a court behaving unethically, you will never have a chance to regain that confidence of the court. And I can tell you that I've had judges go to bat for me. I had a prosecutor at one point who came after me and said the prosecutor was alleging that I'd behaved unethically. And the judge basically said, prosecutor, I want to hear your evidence on that because I know Mr. Runkle and I know he behaves ethically. And unless you've got something to back that up, you should not be making that suggestion. So let's hear it. Bring your, where's your evidence? Do you need an adjournment to get your evidence? And the prosecutor was like, I was just, theorizing. And the court was like, you don't get to do that. You don't get to theorize about opposing counsel's ethics without some evidence, especially not when Mr. Runkle has a track record in this court of behaving ethically. And that prosecutor was real unhappy with that because the judge was not pleased. You got to make sure that you do that. I warn law students and so forth. I'm like, you never get that second chance. If you cut that corner, and I can tell you, I've had moments where I had judges who were like, Mr. Runkle, did you screw up on this? And I was like, I did. And the court was huge. Like, it was literally at one point there was we got something that was put over a month to get disclosure. And I asked my assistant to send in a request for that disclosure on that file. My assistant didn't. And the thing is about being a lawyer is everything is your fault. You don't get to pass the blame. If my assistant didn't do it, that is my fault for not following up with my assistant and not checking that my assistant had done it. So when the court was, it was put over a month for disclosure, I'm going in, I'm like, I still don't have disclosure. And the Crown's like, we've never received your request. And I was like, court, can I stand down? I need to, we need to pause this. And I went and checked. I was like, hey, did this disclosure request go in? And they were like, no, it didn't. Our bad. So I had to walk back into the court and say, court, I am just going to say, it looks like that disclosure request was not filed. That is my fault. This delay of that month is my fault. I accept responsibility for it. And the court was like, cool. We understand each other. It sucked. Like going in there and eating crow like that sucked. And I will tell you that if my client had not been on bail, it would have sucked a lot more because that judge would have ripped me a new one if I had stalled out my client by accident for a month when they were in custody. But as it was, because I didn't try to lie, I didn't try to cover, or I didn't anything, the court was like, okay, cool. We understand. And that's on record that was your mistake. We'll give you another month. Mr. Runkle, kindly make sure that disclosure request gets filed this time. And I can tell you, when I went back, that assistant, I was at a firm, that assistant was useless. And I filed the disclosure request myself because I was just like, if I can't trust the assistant, I'm doing this myself. So I actually, at that point, stopped assigning. Because I'm at a firm, I didn't have the authority to fire the assistant, and I didn't have the authority to get myself a new assistant. But I took every task off of the assistant's plate, and I just did everything myself. That assistant got fired about 3 months later when they absolutely tanked another lawyer's case in a way that got them on the hook for some potential liability. And I said it. I was like, I warned you that this assistant is useless. They didn't file a statement of defense within the limitation period within the period for filing that statement of defense. And they almost, they came really close to ending up having to pay out that entire lawsuit on their own. Equality, hi Ian, hi chat, hi Equality. That's great. Great to see you. Always a nice thing there. And this is a great line. If you watch Leonard French, which I recommend, I watch Leonard French. He does great content. He's got a phrase. I think it's a quotation from case law, but it is an excellent phrase. It says, well, you ate the crow while it was young and tender, rather than waiting until it was old and tough. I think the phrase, the way he says it is, eat crow while it's young and tender, or else you shall surely eat crow while it's old and tough. Take responsibility for your shit. That applies not just in law, that applies in life generally. My dad used to work at a newspaper plant, right? They would print newspapers. And one of the things they had was, I mean, when you're working at an industrial scale, some of these parts are worth tremendous amounts of money. And so one thing that they used to do as a prank, but also a test of the new guy, is they got shipped a defective part, and this part is $100,000 part. It's sized like a brick. So they would tell the new guy, and like this one that they had was defective. They knew it was broken. They would tell the new guy, "Here, we need you to take this to this other place across the plant, and be careful with it. It's $100,000. So don't drop it, don't shake it, don't break it, don't anything." So this guy would be like, "I understand," and off he goes with this very expensive and, unbeknownst to him, already broken part. They would have a guy lying in wait. This is the joke here. This is the prank, is that they've got a guy lying in wait, and that guy is going to bump into the new guy, and as he bumps into him, he pushes the part out of the guy's hand and makes him drop it, right? And then just basically goes, "Hey, I'm walking here," and keeps walking. So the new guy then picks up the part and takes it to where he's going. And the test of like the quality of the new guy comes in when he gets to his destination. Because some people will be like, "Hey, I dropped this part, and because I dropped this part, you should check this," right? And they're taking personal responsibility for this, thing, and they hand it over. They say, "You need to check this to make sure it's fine." And they'd run the thing, and they'd say, "Oh, it's not working. This thing's $100,000, right?" And then after a second of this guy panicking, they would go, "We're just kidding. We screwed you up. Like, we just like this is a test," right? Some people who are less quality than that previous notch would say, "Bob ran into me and made me drop the part," which is actually correct, but they're taking less responsibility. They're blaming Bob, even though it's Bob's fault. But you should check this part. And those guys are still good guys, right? The guys who they knew that they couldn't trust, that they knew they had to watch and they knew would be a problem, are the guys who just arrived and said, "Hey, here's the part, bye." And then they'd be like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Before you go, we got to test this thing, right?" And then the person would be like, "Oh, well, it was not my fault. Nothing happened." It's like, well, those are the guys who are going to make mistakes and are going to try to cover those mistakes up. And those are the people you can't trust. So that is just kind of a life lesson, right? And I see Emma Z. Thank you very much for the member chat there. Thanks for being the kind of human being that understands what it's like in real life, being human, thoroughly honest, aware of human flaws. Stay you, Clover. Well, thank you, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. And yeah, it was like this when I got it, which is correct. Yep. And I'm not taking the fall for Bob. Screw Bob. It's just a different kind of attitude. And the thing is that Bob was actually in the wrong. They didn't actually sort of get suspicious or anything like that when somebody says, "Bob bumped into me and made me drop it." The guys that they got suspicious of, or that they knew that they had to watch, are the places where they said, like, where they just tried to hope that nobody would notice. That's where the problem is, because that's somebody you can't necessarily trust, and it's it's you failing a test of honor. Similarly, I have seen law firms do something like where they say, "Hey, you need to move this cash from one place to another," and if all the cash doesn't make it, criminals do this as well. If you're being told to move cash from one place to another and the cash doesn't make it there 100%, then you're going to be in some trouble. So, yeah. All right. We'll just sort of, and I see Twilight was a fanfic of Harry Potter. I think Twilight was actually probably more based on the World of Darkness, is kind of my thoughts on that. Twilight is kind of sparkle World of Darkness. So, All right. And I see somebody's asking about lemon pound cake. We covered that last week. I don't think there have been any big developments in that. We'll have to see. I guess the only development is that Afro Man has said that he's running for president, which is silly. That's just a marketing thing. So, all right. What do you call it? We'll wrap this up. I think I have to make a video or two before I go to bed. I want to do some content for Rule of Law. I want to do a. I don't think I'm going to get it done, but I want to do some more talking about what do you call it? Puzzles. And I also want to do some more talking about this one and some of the issues. I'm going to do a video on ovens at some point. I'm going to do a video on a bunch of other things. So that I got to do. But for right now, I got to open the door so that I don't broil in here. And we will see you guys later. I'm going to roll the outro, just making sure I don't have any super chats that I haven't covered. All right. See you guys. See you guys next time.